A nurse was taking care of a patient in a vegetative state. Suddenly, something sticky licked her face. It turned out to be a giant cockroach, over 8 feet tall. Just as the nurse thought she was doomed. The next second, the sound of clenching knuckles echoed. With a loud bang, the cockroach was blasted to pieces. The one who saved her was the patient who had been paralyzed for half a year. But before he fell into a coma, he was supposed to be a weakling who broke into a cold sweat just by walking. It turns out that due to environmental pollution, the universe judged the entire Earth as a virus. This triggered an immune response. Countless creatures began to mutate. For a time, humans fell to the very bottom of the food chain. Soon, 90% of humanity was slaughtered by monsters. Just as humanity was on the brink of extinction, Awakeners emerged from among the survivors. Using their immense power, they pushed back countless monsters. Eventually, they established a sanctuary. To uncover more Awakeners, the Superhuman Academy was founded. Everyone who turns 18 must take the exam. Now, at the Superhuman Academy's admissions site, crowds of students were waiting for their tests. Awakeners categorized superhuman talents into 3 ranks: white dust, blue spirit, and purple soul. However, the Superhuman Academy only accepts those with blue spirit rank or higher. Soon, it was the protagonist Aiden's turn. He looked at the crowd and confidently reached out to the testing crystal. Suddenly, a blinding sphere of light appeared. His talent was luck. Immediately, the entire testing area was drowned in endless laughter. After all, the odds of awakening a white dust rank talent are 1 in 10 million. But Aiden's luck talent had absolutely no combat power, making it the absolute worst of the worst. At that moment, even Lily had a look of disappointment on her face. Unable to accept reality, Aiden immediately drove his motorcycle away from the testing ground. He wondered how he could possibly face the monsters that destroyed the Matian building with such a useless talent. Was he really just a waste? Just as Aiden was feeling lost, a shooting star suddenly streaked across the sky, heading straight for him. But seeing the meteor, Aiden had no intention of dodging. He mocked himself, thinking that since he had luck on his side and bullets couldn't even hit him, there was no way a mere shooting star could. However, this time, his luck talent didn't trigger. The meteor slammed violently into Aiden. As the dust settled, Aiden lay motionless on the ground, and it was impossible to tell if he was still alive. An entity attempted to merge into Aiden's body. Then, a woman with an indistinct figure appeared in Aiden's consciousness. She performed a comprehensive analysis of his body. The host possesses a hidden superhuman power, luck, but has no combat ability and is easily killed. After her investigation, the woman gave a playful smile. She then injected a surge of red energy into Aiden's body. Under the influence of the energy, Aiden's body underwent complex changes. I grant you a red sovereign rank talent, the Mystic Fist. This should be enough for you to protect yourself until I awaken. Meanwhile, in the outside world, Aiden had been taken to the hospital. But according to the doctor's diagnosis, his vital signs were all normal. Ultimately, he was declared to be in a vegetative state. His girlfriend rushed to his side as soon as she heard the news. Over the following months, the classmates who once mocked him also came to visit. However, they didn't actually want Aiden to wake up. They simply came to make fun of him. That was when the school bully noticed an envelope tucked among the flowers. Curious, he tore it open. The school beauty Celeste. A confession from this loser. Besides, it is doubtful he will even wake up. Annoyed, he tore the letter to shreds on the spot. Just like that, 2.5 years passed. By then, the city was being invaded by countless mutant cockroach monsters. They stormed into the hospital with incredible speed. The doctors were all scrambling to evacuate. However, one nurse was an exception. She ran anxiously toward the ward at the end of the hallway, because she knew there was a student in a coma there. Even if he might never wake up, she couldn't just leave him behind. That person was Aiden. She quickly helped Aiden up, preparing to evacuate. But just then, she saw the reflection of a cockroach monster in the window. Then, a sharp claw landed on her shoulder. The cockroach monster greedily stuck out its tongue and licked her cheek. The nurse was instantly frozen in fear, unable to move. Just as she was losing hope, Aiden, who had been in a coma for 1.5 years, suddenly sat up and killed the cockroach monster with a single punch. Aiden then reached out and helped the nurse up. Thank you for taking care of me for so long. Leave the rest to me. But the nurse asked Aiden curiously, aren't you a student? How did you kill that mutant with one punch? Aiden scratched his head awkwardly. I've been practicing my fist techniques for 2.5 years. After saying that, he led the nurse away. After saying that, he took the nurse to meet up with the evacuation forces. But he didn't expect that the hospital had already been completely overrun by cockroach monsters. The moment they saw Aiden, they opened their gaping maws and lunged at him. But Aiden had no intention of dodging. Instead, he clenched his right fist and took a fighting stance. He suddenly threw a punch, and the cockroach monster caught in the shockwave was instantly obliterated. Seeing this, the surviving cockroach monsters instantly realized they were no match for Aiden. So they shifted their target and launched a sneak attack on the nurse. Just as the nurse was about to be killed, Aiden quickly grabbed a bottle of sulfuric acid, threw it into the air, and smashed it with a punch. The splashing liquid instantly gathered on Aiden's hand, and he unleashed a sulfuric acid punch that completely corroded the monster's head. He didn't expect the fist techniques he learned in his dreams to be so powerful in actual combat. He also discovered that the mystic fist could synergize with other elements to create different methods of attack. After dealing with all the monsters, Aiden took the nurse and escaped the hospital. However, at that moment, the nurse discovered the last evacuation bus from the hospital was actually surrounded by monsters. Fortunately, a Starlight-ranked superhuman arrived just in time, using his infinite magazine power to gun down countless cockroaches. Just when he thought victory was certain, a crimson light suddenly flared up behind him. Then, a rat monster opened its massive maw and lunged, sending the superhuman to his grave. The terrified evacuees prayed for someone to come and save them. Aiden saw everything. Those medical staff had carefully looked after him for 2.5 years while he was unconscious. He couldn't just stand by and not save them now. Meanwhile, the rat monster was toying with the bus. Just as it was about to smash the window and eat the nurses inside, Aiden appeared before the rat monster like a bolt of lightning, delivering a powerful punch that blasted the creature 10 meters away. However, the hit only cost the rat monster a few hairs. It glared fiercely at Aiden, who looked like an ant beneath its feet. Its vicious gaze sent a chill down Aiden's spine. A monster of this size would probably break every bone in his body and kill him on the spot. Before Aiden could even react, the rat monster attacked. Although the rat monster was massive, it was incredibly agile. Facing the rat monster's assault, Aiden could only scramble to escape. He led the rat monster away, using his smaller size to weave through the crowd of cars. While attacking, the rat monster accidentally bit into a car next to Aiden. Aiden instantly seized the opening and launched a counterattack. He struck the rat monster's face with all his might. The blow sent the rat monster flying backward like a meteorite, crashing heavily onto the ground. Looking at the motionless rat monster, Aiden thought it had been knocked unconscious. He stepped forward, fist raised, to deliver a finishing blow. But just as he got within 3 meters, the monster's blood-red eyes snapped open, and it grabbed a nearby car to hurl at Aiden. Fortunately, Aiden was on guard, so the rat monster's fake-out didn't work. At that moment, he realized that the strength of his punches was far from enough to kill this general-rank monster. Just then, he suddenly spotted something inside a wrecked car nearby. The leaking gasoline sparked an idea in Aiden's mind. He lured the rat monster toward the middle of the cars, and by the time the creature realized what was happening, it was already too late. Aiden lit a lighter and threw it directly onto the gasoline. The moment the lighter hit the ground, the leaking cars exploded. The blazing flames instantly engulfed the rat monster. As expected, the rat monster's weakness was fire. Aiden took the opportunity to strike the rat monster. As he unleashed a blazing flame punch, the surrounding fire converged into his fist. The terrifying heat burned everything in front of him to ashes. The rescued people were all shocked. Is he a high-level superhuman? Why is he still wearing hospital pajamas from my clinic? The young lady also rushed over. The nurse rushed over. His name is Aiden. He is a student who wasn't admitted to the Superhuman Academy. Meanwhile, at the Superhuman Command Center, a woman made a call. Celeste, you don't need to rush over there anymore. That general-rank monster has already been killed. Hearing this, Celeste was shocked. Who defeated it? I should be the only high-rank superhuman in this area. I don't know. It must be an unregistered powerhouse. It couldn't possibly be those rude students, right? However, they could never have guessed that the one who defeated the general-rank monster was a comatose patient. After the battle ended, the nurse was helping Aiden treat his wounds. Suddenly, a strange woman rushed over, crying and shouting as she tried to break into the hospital. But she was stopped by the guards. They informed her that there were reportedly no survivors left in the hospital. Please, let me in. My younger brother is still unconscious inside. She couldn't just leave him like this. As she spoke, tears of grief streamed uncontrollably from her eyes. Wait for me, little brother. Even if I have to risk my life, I'll find your body. Meanwhile, Aiden was watching her, for he was that very brother. Just as his sister was about to force her way through, Aiden quickly stepped in front of her. The sister stood frozen for a few seconds, unable to process what was happening. Then she suddenly threw herself into Aiden's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. Aiden gently stroked his sister's head to comfort her. He knew it hadn't been easy for her. She had been working 3 jobs at once, and now she looked even more haggard than he, the patient. Because of this, Aiden decided that once he returned home, he had to find a way to make money so his sister could have a better life. Just then, A news report on the TV caught Aiden's attention. It turned out the Superhuman Association had issued a bounty. You could earn a commission by hunting mutant creatures or providing clues about their source. There were bounties for cockroach monsters and 50,000 for giant rats. With that kind of money, Aiden could not only pay off his debts and move into a better house, but he could also buy his sister pretty clothes and makeup. Based on Aiden's analysis, the mutant creatures in the area all came from the underground drainage system. Even if he couldn't find the source of the contamination, he could still make money by killing mutant beasts. So, he headed to the bounty hall to accept a mission. Seeing how young Aiden was, the receptionist asked about his talent rank. This left Aiden feeling quite embarrassed. He could only tell her that he hadn't taken the test yet and didn't know his rank. Upon hearing this, the receptionist suggested that someone like him should head to the training grounds to demonstrate some basic superhuman abilities first. The association would then issue him a trainee superhuman badge. In the future, he could undergo a series of complex assessments to earn a Starglow rank or higher. After hearing this, Aiden followed the receptionist to the training ground. The receptionist told him to attack the dummy in front of him with all his might to pass the test. Aiden looked at the value on the screen and assumed that a punch of 800 kilograms would be enough to pass. However, since he'd never tested his strength before, Aiden wasn't very confident. After being in a vegetative state for a year and a half, his muscle strength hadn't fully recovered. So, he gathered all his strength and threw a punch at the dummy. The onlookers nearby were stunned when the punch completely shattered the dummy. Seeing 1,000 kilograms on the screen, Aiden nodded with satisfaction, thinking he'd barely made the cut. A big guy standing nearby overheard Aiden's humble brag about barely making the cut. The receptionist, snapping back to reality, hurriedly explained that the 800 kilograms record set by a Steel Fist superhuman 2 years ago had already been broken by Aiden. Hearing this, Aiden scratched his head awkwardly. The receptionist then handed Aiden a trainee badge and a 1,000 yuan shopping card, a small prize for breaking the record during the rating. Looking at the shopping card from the Starlight rating, Aiden grinned. Once he reached the Heavenly Ray level and earned 10 million, he could finally give his sister a better life. After that, Cyrus approached Aiden. He invited Aiden to join his wild Cohen squad. Aiden, realizing how the official superhuman system worked, was about to agree. But once Cyrus saw the trainee badge on Aiden's chest, his expression changed. He claimed his team didn't take rookies, telling Aiden to go home and drink his milk. For Aiden, going on a mission would be no different from seeking death. Unexpectedly, after Cyrus shouted this, even fewer teams were willing to take Aiden in. Just then, a few people sitting nearby noticed him. "Isn't that Aiden from our old class?" Aiden greeted his old classmates. When asked what he was doing there, Aiden explained that he wanted to hunt some mutated creatures to earn extra money for the medical bills from his coma. Unexpectedly, Damon laughed out loud, saying that with a small frame like Aiden's, he'd just be seeking death. He added that Aiden's power didn't seem to be a combat type. Before Damon could finish, Lily stopped him, asking why he'd say such a thing and insisting that since Aiden had finally been discharged, they should help him as old classmates. She invited him to join her team, as the authorities didn't allow solo missions, so Aiden had no choice but to team up with them. Their mission this time was to investigate the source of pollution. On the way, Aiden shared his analysis with everyone. So far, 3 types of mutant creature J have been discovered: mutant cockroaches, mutant maggots, and mutant troll rats. These are all creatures that dwell in the sewers. Because of this, Aiden concluded that the source of pollution is most likely some kind of liquid. But just as Aiden was analyzing, countless red lights suddenly flickered in the dark corners. Immediately after, the ground beneath them began to shake violently. Aiden and Lily both looked behind them. Creatures emerged from the ground and swarmed together to form a giant palm, launching a direct attack on Aiden and the others. Seeing this, Aiden and Lily were terrified and bolted. A single maggot is easy enough to deal with, but when tens of thousands of them merge, it's absolutely terrifying. Seeing Aiden flee, one of the others looked back out of curiosity, only to be so terrified by the sight that they nearly wet their pants and ran faster than anyone else. Suddenly, a cry for help came from behind the group. It turned out Lily had tripped while running. She was about to be swallowed by the army of maggots. In that critical moment. But his teammates were terrified and fled in all directions. Aiden, standing by, couldn't stand it anymore. He immediately turned around to rescue her. He rushed over, pushed her away, and used the momentum to blow up the roadside fire hydrant. But by then, the insect tide had already surged up and swallowed Aiden. Just as his teammates thought Aiden was doomed, the water gushing from the fire hydrant all gathered toward Aiden's fist. Then, Aiden threw a punch, creating a massive pillar of water that scattered the insect tide. However, Aiden soon realized that his attack could only scatter them, not kill them. Aiden hurried to get them to a safe zone before the monsters could regroup. But Aiden didn't realize that his heroic rescue had unconsciously won over the girl in his arms. Soon, the two of them arrived at the building where their teammates were hiding. The teammates were all stunned to see Aiden return with her. Damon stepped forward and said, "I went to save you, but I didn't expect Aiden to beat me to it." The other teammates awkwardly agreed. They quickly began treating the girl's wounds. Aiden told everyone that the saliva of these mutated creatures was corrosive and had to be treated with medicine. Two others split up to search for medicine and check the building to ensure no maggots had crawled inside. Soon, something caught Aiden's attention. He saw that many rare insects had been bred there and walked toward a broken terrarium. According to the records, the insects in the cage had suddenly disappeared half a year ago. He wondered if the mutation source would cause these insects to mutate as well. After sighing, he continued inspecting the building. But what Aiden didn't notice was that the missing insect was actually the world's largest giant centipede. Just as Aiden finished confirming that all the building's entrances were closed, a figure appeared outside. Was that Dr. Nero, the one who had treated him before? Why was he walking around the quarantine zone? Did he live in those unfinished buildings over there? Just then, a call from an unknown number snapped him back to reality. Aiden curiously answered the phone. A woman's voice immediately came through the line. It was Nurse Rose, who wanted to invite Aiden to dinner to repay him for saving her life. Aiden told her that he was currently in the quarantine zone. Nurse Rose was stunned. She stood up anxiously. "Why are you there? Isn't it completely locked down to prevent anyone from entering? Isn't there a reward for this? I want to earn some money to help ease my sister's burden." Hearing this, Nurse Sarah curiously asked if he and his sister, Rainey, were biological siblings. "No, we grew up in an orphanage." After hearing this, Nurse Sarah immediately felt more relaxed. What a thoughtful young man, she thought. "I wish I had a younger brother like you. Since you're working, we'll just have to wait for next time." What a shame. "I also saw Dr. Nero here." Hearing this, Nurse Sarah frowned. "That's strange, he doesn't live around here." Speaking of Dr. Nero, he used to be very responsible. But now, he's always missing work or leaving early for no reason. It feels like his mental state is quite poor. There was a piece of a calamity beast that needed purification, but he accidentally lost it. Hearing this, Aiden was completely stunned. Because his teacher had mentioned back in school, calamity beast blood reacts when it comes into contact with oxygen in the air. Some calamity beast blood even has an incubation period. Could the source of the contamination be calamity beast blood? Aiden quickly asked Nurse Rose to confirm the exact time the blood went missing. The answer was that it happened years ago. The timing fit perfectly. Combined with Dr. Nero's strange behavior, Aiden quickly told Nurse Rose that this was likely why Dr. Nero had gone to the quarantine zone on his own. He must have realized he made a huge mistake and wanted to recover the calamity beast blood lost that day. Aiden asked Nurse Rose to notify the authorities so they could investigate that unfinished building as soon as possible. Meanwhile, he wanted to follow Dr. Nero to stop him. Aiden soon went to the lobby to gather with his teammates and tell them about this. "Those maggots are coming in. You guys rest here. I have to go out for a bit, I'll be back soon." Just after saying that, while everyone looked on in shock, Aiden took a shortcut to intercept Nero. But just then, a few cockroach monsters spotted him and surrounded him. Aiden didn't panic and killed them all with a single punch. He soon found Nero and followed him silently. As he entered an unfinished building, he found a bottomless pit on the ground. There was a rope ladder by the pit, so Aiden didn't think twice and jumped straight down. After landing, he discovered that the area connected to the sewers. Nero's behavior was very strange. After following him, Aiden reached the city's central water station. Nero was climbing toward the highest point of the station. Seeing this, Aiden quickly called out to him. The moment Nero saw Aiden, his body shook violently, and he almost lost his footing and fell. Aiden then asked Nero if the serum from years ago had been cleaned up. Hearing this, Nero's body began to tremble uncontrollably. Then he walked down the ladder to the ground. He claimed he hadn't hidden the truth on purpose, and he never imagined his negligence would lead to such a mutation. He said he only came today to check on the contamination. After all, the serum had been lost in this area. Claiming he truly wanted to make amends, he knelt before Aiden. He pleaded that if the authorities found out, he wouldn't just lose his job, he might even go to prison, leaving his wife and children with no one to care for them. Hearing Nero's plea, Aiden felt a surge of pity and quickly bent down to help him up. Aiden suggested that it would be better to report the incident to the authorities and let them handle it. However, the moment he mentioned reporting it, a red light flashed in Nero's eyes. Nero said, "It seems you haven't told anyone else yet." Aiden confirmed he hadn't, believing it would be better for Nero to explain everything to the authorities himself. Once he had confirmation, Nero suddenly became agitated, his whole body trembling. He then stood up and walked toward Aiden with a sinister smile. This man had always been seen by the public as a perfect doctor. But at night, he transforms into a twisted, mad scientist. To prove his research, he is willing to poison every single person in the city. He believes that in the grand scheme of the universe, the birth of life was a mistake and should never have happened. To him, the existence of life is like a virus growing inside a healthy body. And humans are the kings of these viruses. They breed and plunder recklessly, polluting the world with chemicals, destroying the environment, and even dumping trash into space. He sees no difference between these actions and those of cockroaches or rats. So, he decided to become a savior and wipe out all the viruses to reboot the world. To cure the planet, he has developed a special serum. By spreading it through the water supply, everyone will be affected. After explaining his extreme plan, he expected Aiden to act like a hero and try to stop him. But he didn't expect Aiden to. But Aiden just patted him on the shoulder. If you want to keep showing off, go ahead, but if that's all, I'm out of here. Nero was completely bewildered. You saved a whole bus of people from our hospital back then. Didn't you have a strong sense of justice? Don't you want to be the one to save the whole city? But Aiden replied that he hadn't even gotten into the Superhuman Academy, so he wasn't fit to be some kind of hero. Nero didn't think much of it, figuring the task at hand was more important. However, as he prepared to take out the monster's serum from his pocket, he found it was empty. That's when he realized that when Aiden patted his shoulder just now, he must have swiped the serum. He was so furious, he collapsed to his knees. In a second, his entire body began to mutate. Then, like a wild beast, he chased after Aiden. Aiden, who was making his escape, also noticed something was wrong. He hadn't expected Nero to be so insane that he'd use his own body for a mutation experiment. Nero tore a chunk of flesh from his own body and hurled it at Aiden. The flesh instantly mutated into a tumor monster, and it even had the ability to split itself. Just as Aiden grabbed the ladder and was about to climb up, the tumor monster struck like lightning and cut the rope ladder. Aiden felt a sudden chill down his spine. He didn't expect these beasts to be so cunning as to cut the ladder and block his retreat. Soon, the tumor monster split into 4 and surrounded Aiden. But Aiden grabbed the ones attacking him, using them as stepping stones to escape the sewer and reach the surface. Once on the surface, the ground instantly turned into mud that gathered around Aiden's fist. As Aiden threw his punch, the mud completely blocked the hole in the ground. This cut off the tumor monster and Nero from their exit to the surface. However, Aiden didn't know that the now mutated Nero. Meanwhile, Aiden was fleeing frantically. The strength of mutated monsters is based on how strong they were when they were still animals. The weakest are the maggots. The troll rat from before was already strong enough that Aiden struggled to deal with it. So if a living human were to mutate, it would be far beyond what he could handle. Therefore, he could only keep fleeing. He had to stall until the officials arrived to take this calamity beast. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Cyrus, who had previously refused to team up with Aiden, was hunting maggots to earn a commission. Just as they finished their mission and prepared to withdraw, a manhole cover suddenly exploded. It sent a superhuman flying 200 meters away. Fortunately, a walker with flight abilities caught him. Otherwise, he would have definitely been smashed into a pulp. That was when Nero emerged from underground. Cyrus and his group looked at Nero and grinned from ear to ear. They didn't expect that something was still hiding underground. Killing him would net them at least 100,000 in bounty. Roland looked at Nero with disdain, calling him a disgusting monster. You're just unlucky to have run into us, these moon-level superhumans. Facing a team of moon-glow-grade superhumans, Roland's flippant attitude directly enraged Nero. In a rage, Nero swung his claws at Roland's head. Seeing this, Roland grinned and dodged with a quick step back. With speed that slow, there's no way you can hit me. But before he could finish, Nero's arm suddenly extended 2.5 meters, pinning Roland firmly against the wall. Then, Nero raised his left hand, which transformed into a sharp blade and stabbed straight through Roland's chest. Seeing her teammate die so suddenly, Chloe drew her short sword and slashed at Nero. However, she noticed that the wounds on Nero's body were healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Despite this, Chloe didn't stop her attack. But with a single casual wave of his hand, Nero sliced Chloe clean in half. Seeing his teammates fall, Captain Cyrus was so terrified he practically wet himself. Nero looked at their terrified expressions and licked his lips, then summoned the tumor monster to deal with them. Nero was in a hurry to chase after Aiden. He was determined to tear Aiden to pieces. Meanwhile, Aiden, who was on the run, heard the roars of the tumor monsters behind him. He thought he had already shaken them off. But why could they still find him in these complex streets? That was when he noticed the serum in his arms. Those tumor monsters were tracking him by scent. Fortunately, Nero wasn't as fast as the tumor monsters, and Aiden quickly ran into a nearby gas station. He poured gasoline on his arms. This should hide his scent. Then he stepped inside the store. After that, the tumor monsters couldn't find him. But one of them suddenly stopped and ran straight toward the store. Aiden curled up in a corner and held his breath. But then he noticed that the tumor monster's footsteps had vanished. Just as he was about to peek out, he turned around to find a tumor monster had already crawled above him. It opened its huge maw to attack. Luckily, he reacted quickly enough to dodge the strike. At the same time, he grabbed something nearby and pinned it onto the tumor monster. Just as he tried to escape the store, he realized the other 3 tumor monsters had chased in the wrong direction. Only this one, with the keenest sense of smell, had found him, meaning it was now isolated. Running wouldn't help. Unless he took out this one with the sharpest scent, he'd be found no matter where he hid. Meanwhile, the tumor monster leaped from the shelves, taking an offensive stance as it stared Aiden down. Aiden knew that he needed a special medium to activate his skills. His sulfuric acid fist required sulfuric acid. His flame fist required a large fire, and his other attacks worked similarly. But there were no useful mediums in the store. If he went outside, he might be spotted by the other tumor monsters. So he had no choice but to stay. He decided to fight this tumor monster hand-to-hand. Aiden stepped aside, dodging the monster's surprise attack, and took the opportunity to kick it in the stomach. Hit by the blow, the tumor monster flew backward like a meteorite, slamming hard into the wall. The impact created a cloud of thick smoke. Aiden was choking and couldn't breathe, and the tumor monster seized this opening to launch an attack. Unable to dodge, Aiden was grabbed by the shoulder and slammed hard to the ground. Just as the tumor monster was about to bite him, a toolbox fell from a shelf and smashed onto its head. The intense pain caused the tumor monster to gradually loosen its grip. Aiden took the chance to break free. He punched the tumor monster right in the jaw, sending it flying into the air. Aiden then concentrated his power in his fist and unleashed 81 punches on the creature. Finally, holding his breath, he unleashed his full power and struck the tumor monster's head with the essence of the mystic fist. The tumor monster's head exploded instantly from the blow. Even the store's wall, which was 2.5 meters thick, was smashed with a huge hole. Meanwhile, Nero, who was chasing Aiden, felt a sudden sharp pain in his shoulder and began spurting blood. However, this allowed him to pinpoint Aiden's location. But by the time he reached the store, Aiden had already vanished. Nero was so furious he nearly ground his teeth to dust. He pointed at the corpse of the tumor monster. "Eat that useless piece of trash." Upon receiving the order, the 3 tumor monsters instantly pounced and began to feast. As they ate, their shadows on the ground actually began to change. Clearly, they had evolved. Now that you've evolved, your sense of smell should be sharper, right? Now, go and bring back that rat who escaped. I want him alive. Nero tore a chunk of flesh from his own shoulder. In an instant, that flesh transformed into 4 tumor monsters. Moreover, they could evolve further by devouring one another. Just as the tumor monsters finished evolving, Nero ordered them to track down Aiden. Meanwhile, Aiden was fleeing through the city's narrow alleys. Suddenly, he heard the shrieks of tumor monsters coming from behind him. "Didn't I kill that one? How are 3 others chasing me now?" Their voices sound even more terrifying. Without realizing it, while fleeing, Aiden came across an amusement park. The layout was complex, so even if he were caught, he could still hold his own against those monsters. Moreover, there were mystic fist mediums here that could be useful. His speed would increase, and his overall strength could be greatly enhanced. Aiden immediately walked to a pond to wash the gasoline off his arms. Otherwise, he would be tracked by scent. Then, Aiden searched the amusement park for a suitable place to fight. He wanted to take out as many tumor monsters as possible, so that Nero would have no way to deal with him. Unexpectedly, a tumor monster over 8 feet tall appeared before him. Aiden didn't understand why the tumor monster had become so massive. Before he could react, the tumor monster raised its claw and lunged at him. Aiden dodged the attack with a backflip. While dodging, Aiden noticed that the tumor monster was much stronger than before. He watched as the tumor monster's arm quickly transformed into a sharp blade. The tumor monster launched another surprise attack at Aiden. Aiden could only keep dodging. While dodging, he discovered the tumor monster's weakness, which was its lack of speed. Just as Aiden took a combat stance to counterattack, 2 other tumor monsters arrived and completely surrounded him. Seeing this, Aiden turned and ran, facing 3 of them at once. He didn't stand a chance. He quickly climbed the roller coaster tracks. He wanted to take the high ground, to maintain an advantage and take them down one by one. While climbing, he used Mystic Fist to extract iron elements from the tracks. Suddenly, his arm became as hard as steel. Just then, a tumor monster leaped up. Aiden reacted by putting all his strength into a punch, slamming it right into the tumor monster's claw. The power of the blow was so great that the entire amusement park began to shake violently. The tumor monster took the hit head-on, and its arm shattered instantly. Aiden seized the opening and threw another punch, slamming it into the monster's stomach. This punch pierced straight through the tumor monster's body. Aiden looked at his fist in disbelief. He hadn't expected that after absorbing the metal element, Mystic Fist, he could actually punch straight through a general rank monster. With this power, facing the remaining 2 shouldn't be a problem. The other two tumor monsters had already crawled up. They opened their massive maws and launched a surprise attack on Aiden. But Aiden had no intention of dodging, using his arm to tank the tumor monster's strike head-on. His arm was as indestructible as steel, and after blocking the attack, he delivered an uppercut straight into the tumor monster's chest. Seeing this, the tumor monster's eyes turned red. It immediately condensed bone armor on its chest to block Aiden's attack. Although it was sent flying by the massive impact, it didn't die. Moreover, Aiden noticed the other tumor monster had already crawled beneath him. Aiden was shocked by the evolution speed of these monsters. The tumor monster beneath his feet instantly opened its massive maw to bite him. Aiden had to keep dodging while looking for an opening to counterattack. Unexpectedly, just as his fist was about to hit the tumor monster, hard bone spikes suddenly grew from its body. Aiden immediately withdrew his attack. He found himself surrounded, with the tumor monsters launching relentless attacks. Even with the mystic fist, he was outnumbered. He quickly fell into a disadvantage, and several deep wounds appeared on his body. Aiden looked at the two tumor monsters in front of him and suddenly grinned. Then, like a bolt of lightning, he lunged at the tumor monster. The tumor monster's body quickly hardened to block the attack. But the impact still sent it flying back dozens of meters. The moment the tumor monster stopped, a roller coaster car sped toward them. The tumor monster didn't have time to react and was slammed away, dying instantly. Aiden took the opportunity to jump off the tracks, avoiding the collision. It turned out that the moment Aiden entered the amusement park, he had already started the roller coaster, planning to use it to take out the remaining tumor monsters. At that moment, the last tumor monster actually managed to dodge the impact and appeared behind Aiden. Aiden looked down. Falling from this height, not only would he die, but even the tumor monster would too. While on the rail, the monster began attacking Aiden frantically. Aiden had to let go and start defending himself. He grabbed the monster and held on tight. No matter who fell first, they would both die. But if someone could serve as a meat cushion, the outcome would be different. Aiden firmly pinned the tumor monster beneath his feet. As they plummeted rapidly, the tumor monster was so desperate that tears streamed from its eyes. But that still couldn't change its inevitable fate. As the dust from the explosion cleared, only Aiden remained in the deep pit. After the battle, Aiden continued to flee. Little did he know, in a dark corner, Nero was closely watching his every move. A girl was tied to a chair, suspended 100 meters in the air. If the switch was flipped, they would plummet and be crushed into a pulp. The man did this specifically to lure Aiden into coming to the rescue. Soon, Aiden discovered it. Aiden spotted his teammates tied to the drop tower. He could ignore those three idiots. But he absolutely couldn't leave Lily behind. However, he didn't have any confidence in defeating Nero, since Nero was a Lord-rank monster. So he pulled out the serum from his chest and proposed a bet. He told Nero that if he won, he could have the serum. Aiden just wanted to stall for as much time as possible, while waiting for reinforcements from the authorities. But upon hearing this, Nero just burst into maniacal laughter. He threatened Aiden to hand over the Calamity Beast serum, or he would kill all four of his teammates. Unexpectedly, Aiden replied emotionlessly, "Then just kill them." They are students of the Superhuman Academy. On their first day, they swore on their lives to protect the country, the cities, and the people, and that trading their lives for the safety of the entire city is a worthy sacrifice. He then threw a bone spike toward the drop tower above. The spike instantly pierced Damon's thigh. The intense pain was so sudden that he actually wet himself. Seeing this, Aiden prepared to flee without looking back. But Nero just grinned. "This time, I'll pierce that pretty face of your classmates." A bone spike instantly pierced Lily's shoulder. Hearing Lily's screams, Aiden clenched his fists tightly. Nero looked at Aiden's retreating back and flew into a rage. "Keep running, and I'll turn you all into honeycombs." But Aiden still didn't react. Nero knew that if he actually chased after a rat like Aiden. But soon, a smirk appeared on his lips. He called Aiden to a halt, indicating he was willing to accept his challenge. Then, Nero's eyes flashed red, and he slammed a burst of purple energy from his palm into the ground. Suddenly, the ground of the entire amusement park began to shake violently. Once the dust from the explosion cleared, Nero had already entered a demonized state, and spikes suddenly erupted from the ground around Aiden. Nero told Aiden that if he could win the fight, he could save the people on the drop tower and even save all of Lanyang City. After saying this, Nero pulled several bone spikes from his arm and hurled them at Aiden. Seeing this, Aiden stepped back and dodged them. But just then, Nero charged in front of him like a bolt of lightning, firing a bone spike right at his face. At such close range, Aiden had no time to dodge and was pierced straight through the chest. As blood flowed uncontrollably, Nero excitedly licked his lips and charged at Aiden once more. But Aiden didn't dare retreat, as the lives of his teammates now depended entirely on him. He had to force his heavily injured body to fight Nero head-on. Just as he was about to collapse, Aiden suddenly grabbed a clump of blood from his chest and flung it into Nero's eyes. Taking advantage of the brief blindness, he quickly darted behind him. At the same time, a blood-red light flared up on Aiden's fist as he smashed it toward Nero's head. The blow sent Nero flying backward, where he was impaled by the very spikes he had set up earlier. At that moment, Aiden realized that his own blood was actually the strongest medium for his punches. Just as everyone thought Nero was dead, the man with a pierced heart unexpectedly stood back up. He looked at Aiden with disdain. "It seems your superhuman talent is your fists." But before Nero could finish, Aiden's glowing red fist smashed into his face again. Aiden unleashed 80 punches in a row, each one leaving a deep crater in Nero's body. Yet, in just a few moments, Nero's body returned to normal. This is the strength of the Lord rank. Looking at the shocked Aiden, Nero mocked him, saying that blue spirit rank fists could never defeat him, no matter how many times he smashed them. With that, he raised his claw and instantly slammed a fist toward Aiden. Aiden threw a punch to clash with him. However, Aiden was outmatched in strength, and the impact forced him back 2.5 meters. Nero pressed his advantage, raining punches down on Aiden. With every strike, he grew slightly faster. Aiden gradually struggled to keep up with the speed. Soon, Nero's fist slammed hard into Aiden's abdomen, sending him flying. Simultaneously, bone spikes emerged from Nero's abdominal muscles, firing relentlessly at Aiden. To Nero's surprise, not a single spike from the dense barrage hit Aiden. He then remembered that Aiden had a hidden superhuman talent, luck. However, although Aiden dodged the attack, he had already been knocked out of bounds. Nero then pulled a bone spike from his wrist and hurled it toward the drop tower, piercing right through Lily's chest. Aiden completely lost it. Nero was an absolute animal. Nero explained with a smile that she would only truly be dead if she didn't receive treatment within 5 minutes. Aiden pressed his hand down, letting the bone spikes on the ground pierce straight through his palm. As long as he kills Nero within 5 minutes, she can still be saved. His blood is the strongest medium. But in Nero's eyes, Aiden was completely overestimating himself. He only had a blue spirit rank superhuman talent, and that was his limit. Even if he bled out every drop of blood in his body, he still couldn't beat him. Nero simply stopped fighting back, since his wounds would heal anyway. Aiden, however, was different. He would soon die from excessive blood loss. Doctors hate it most when people try to end their lives but barely survive. If they lack the courage to commit suicide, what's the point of living? Nero believed Aiden wanted to die, yet was brought to the hospital to be saved. It was a complete waste of their precious energy. Aiden was weak and incompetent, failing even at suicide. Nero brought up Aiden's sister, wondering why someone so weak still insisted on playing the hero. He decided to end Aiden's life, so he wouldn't be a burden to others anymore. Nero leaped forward, bone spikes evolving from his hands, delivering a crushing blow of immense power. Aiden dodged it once again, but he ended up out of bounds. Another classmate died because he clung to life. He immediately retorted that it was all just prejudice. He never tried to take his own life, and he was never the one who wasn't cared for. It was Nero. Why would his sister beg someone for no reason? It was because she cared for him, her only remaining relative. When the mutations began and everyone was fleeing, Rose didn't abandon him, even though he had been comatose in the hospital for a whole year. Lily also took the lead in class, organizing donations for him. Nero completely tuned him out. He was about to die anyway, so what was the point of saying all this? Before Aiden could finish, he revealed the most important part. His superhuman talent wasn't just the blue spirit. Nero's body could heal itself, but every one of Aiden's punches left a mark. 49 punches in total. Nero was stunned. He wanted to doubt it, but Aiden remembered too clearly. He continued using his ultimate technique, the Star Trace Fist Curtain. Nero couldn't believe it. Ultimate Soul Intent is a purple soul rank superhuman talent. Nero was a member of the Tianquan organization, and yet, he lost to a loser who couldn't even get into the Superhuman Academy. Boom, boom, boom. That was the sound of Aiden's punches. The 3 students were so shocked their hair stood on end. A massive crater appeared in the ground. Nero lay there alone in the pit. Now he truly couldn't move. Aiden knew very well that he wasn't that powerful yet, and was still quite insignificant. But compared to this menace, he was 10,000 times greater. Aiden ran to the control room to operate the equipment. The students were slowly lowered to safety. Everyone began showering Aiden with praise. Aiden had a purple soul rank talent, and could even use the ultimate soul intent. If it weren't for him, they would have been dead for sure. They all agreed the academy was blind, and that the testing system must be broken, since someone this powerful hadn't been detected. Aiden didn't say a word. Instead, he carefully helped Lily down. Once Lily saw that the boy she liked was safe, she finally started worrying about her own survival. Aiden comforted her. It's been quite a while now, so the authorities must have received the intel. They should be arriving any moment. Lily began praising Damon for how impressive he was, having seen everything that just happened. Damon just played along with the compliments. Daisy kept a close eye on their surroundings, and she and Lawrence noticed the officials arriving. They quickly signaled to them. Commander Valerie spotted the wounded, and seeing that they were students, she immediately sped up. She ordered her team to split into two groups, one to treat the injured and the other to neutralize the threat. Lawrence quickly pointed toward Lily, as she was the one in the most critical condition. The medical staff quickly followed. They didn't pull out the spear. As long as he's treated in time, his life won't be in danger. Valerie noticed Aiden. He was also seriously injured. In fact, he looked much worse off than Lily. He should be the priority for treatment. On their way here, they had also detected a Lord-rank mutant creature. It was a miracle that these students managed to survive. Valerie began asking where the Lord-rank mutant had escaped to. That's when Silas, a Corona grade, appeared. He was the one sent to resolve the crisis, but by now, it had already been handled. He quickly rejoined the group. Valerie was likely furious. It had only been a short while, so how could the crisis have been resolved so quickly? The mission had been handled far too carelessly. She suspected the mutant creature was still nearby, lying in wait. Silas pointed toward a massive crater, explaining that the Lord-rank mutant was already dead. The corpse was right there. He also explained how the Lord-rank mutant had appeared. Valerie was stunned. She didn't care about anything else. She only wanted to know how it died and who had killed it. Several students pointed toward Aiden. Valerie quickly rushed over. Aiden admitted it was him. He was also the one who reported the incident to the authorities. He told them everything that had happened with Nero. He produced the source of contamination he'd been protecting and finally handed it over to the officials. She took one look at it and immediately started questioning him again, clearly wanting to know how a Lord-rank mutant could have died. He was still just a student, so how could he be so powerful? The medical team kept bandaging Aiden, but he wouldn't stop moving while he talked, which really annoyed them. When she learned Aiden was only an apprentice Starglow rank, she was exasperated. This monster had killed 2 Moonglow rank superhumans, so how could an apprentice possibly do it? His classmates helped explain that he had only just become a superhuman and hadn't even gotten into the Superhuman Academy yet. Suddenly, she realized he was the same student who had ignored orders over the radio that day. Coincidentally, someone from the medical team recognized him as the little hero who saved a busload of people at the South Suburb Hospital. They hadn't recognized him at first because he was covered in blood. Silas patted him on the shoulder, saying that Aiden was undoubtedly the hero who had saved Lanyang City from this crisis. And because of this contrast, it made them superhumans look completely incompetent. Valerie began inviting him to join the official superhuman organization, promising great pay, benefits, and beautiful colleagues. Silas was speechless. She was being completely shameless just to recruit a new member. Seeing his superior getting angry, Aiden started flattering her. Even the medical staff were amused. Valerie decided she would even hold up a banner to welcome him, but she didn't expect him to actually want to think it over. Valerie asked what there was to think about. But before she could say more, he passed out. This terrified everyone. The medical staff guessed that between the extreme physical exhaustion and excessive blood loss, he had simply run out of energy and fainted. The local news announced the victory, confirming all mutated creatures were cleared and crediting Aiden for the success. Since he was still in the hospital, an exclusive interview was planned for when he woke up. When Aiden finally woke up at the Lanyang City Hospital, Rose was overjoyed, as she had feared he might not wake up again, just like last time. After being transferred here, she had specifically applied to take care of him. Now, he had become a hero of Lanyang City. Many media outlets were waiting to interview him. The first person Aiden worried about was Lily. Because he had passed out, he didn't know how she was doing. She was still in the ICU, but fortunately, she was out of critical danger. She just needed to recover slowly in the hospital. Aiden finally felt relieved. General Grant from the official organization brought Valerie to visit Aiden. Aiden's constitution was excellent, so he recovered much faster than an average person. Valerie was thrilled, as this was exactly the kind of talent their organization needed. General Grant bowed solemnly to Aiden in gratitude. Valerie also turned serious and bowed. Rose was a bit startled by this. With a single look from General Grant, Valerie understood immediately and pulled Rose away to go shopping and eat. Aiden could tell General Grant wanted to speak with him alone. Before coming, General Grant had asked around and learned that while Aiden's strength was far from being a match for Nero, he had still managed to defeat him. This highlighted a common misconception. A higher rank doesn't necessarily mean a superhuman is more powerful. It's not just about utilizing superhuman abilities, but also about using wisdom. Aiden attributed everything to the luck of his invisible superhuman talent, which is why he was able to encounter this. Grant told him not to be so humble. Luck alone couldn't have kept him going for so long. Aiden also began to analyze what Nero had said. He realized those words weren't entirely crazy. From what they knew, All the calamity beasts invading the world came from meteors, each carrying a creature that posed a threat to humanity. The primary instinct of life on Earth is survival, but for these creatures, it's slaughter, until the human race is extinct. Could humans really be the cancer cells of the universe? This was still being explored, and even the top superhumans and cosmologists didn't know the truth. Aiden had his own thoughts. If the universe really wanted them extinct, it wouldn't have granted them superhuman powers to fight the calamity beasts. Therefore, these invading beasts were the actual germs of the universe. Grant admired Aiden even more. Until the truth is revealed, they cannot be defeated. Superhumans will continue to stand guard, ensuring the spark of human civilization keeps burning. After sharing his views, Grant had two more things to confirm with him. The first was something detected a year ago. An extraterrestrial meteor named Seraphina entered the atmosphere, suddenly changed course, and then exploded in the sky. Aiden happened to be near the impact crater at the time and remained unconscious for a year. Aiden was stunned, finally understanding what had happened. He described the scene, though he admitted he hadn't actually seen much. General Grant began explaining the disaster classification system, which ranges from level 1 to 12. Aiden was surprised to discover that this severe mutation event was only considered a level 3 disaster. Meanwhile, the Seraphina disaster star they detected was classified as level 9. Its danger could affect an entire province, and even the South China region could be impacted. Aiden felt a sense of dread. The fall of a disaster star isn't the scary part. What's truly terrifying is what it carries inside. Just like the level 8 disaster that struck the South China region 5 years ago. The culprit was an emperor-grade calamity beast hidden within the meteor. The source of the current contamination was also the blood of that emperor-grade calamity beast. Some underground traders had hoarded it back then, which is what led to this incident. Calamity beast blood can cause devastating consequences. That's why the Seraphina disaster star is so terrifying, as it could potentially endanger all of humanity. The official organization had searched the area for a long time, but found nothing. Aiden really didn't have any valuable clues to give. The second thing General Grant mentioned was his hope that Aiden would join the official organization. He felt that someone as lucky as Aiden could bring good fortune to their organization. Aiden didn't agree immediately, choosing instead to discuss it with his sister first. General Grant didn't press him, as this was a major decision after all. Regardless, the doors of the official organization would always be open for Aiden. As General Grant was about to leave, Aiden called out to him. Grant thought he had some important clue, but it turned out Aiden was just asking about the 200,000 reward. Aiden sounded a bit embarrassed, which amused General Grant. How could they possibly be short of such a small amount of money? After General Grant left, Aiden began meditating and entered his consciousness space. Before him stood the statue of Seraphina, the Calamity Star, and he wondered if it had heard his conversation with General Grant. Upon hearing Aiden's voice, the statue cracked open. A blinding light made it impossible for him to look directly at it, and a beautiful woman appeared before him. He wanted to confirm something. He wanted to confirm if she was the level 9 Calamity Grant had mentioned. Seraphina was quite disdainful, saying that calling her level 9 was an insult. She was at least a level 11 Calamity. Aiden worried she would harm humanity. She shared Nero's view. That human greed had made the universe uncomfortable, and she also intended to exterminate all of mankind. He stepped in front of her, deciding he definitely couldn't let her leave now. This infuriated her. His powerful superhuman talent was entirely her doing. During the year he was unconscious, she had let him train in the meditation space. Otherwise, how could he have become so strong? And even defeat the mutated Nero? He was well aware that she couldn't do anything to him. The two of them shared a symbiotic relationship. So if he died, she would die too. Seraphina was very dissatisfied. She had no desire to be a parasite inside Aiden's body. If not for an accident, she wouldn't have needed to parasitize him at all. This revealed her uniqueness to him. Grant had mentioned before that the primary instinct of these calamities is slaughter, but her primary instinct was survival. Even if he were weak, she would still choose symbiosis for the sake of survival. Seraphina didn't like Aiden's perspective. She saw herself as a supreme life form, completely different from those low-level calamity beasts. Besides, even a weak host isn't easy to find. There might not be a single compatible host among hundreds of millions of people. Symbiosis is a long process, which is why Aiden spent a whole year in a coma just to adapt. That's when Aiden realized why he couldn't wake up. She was the one who caused his coma, and the superhuman abilities she gave him were just compensation. Seraphina couldn't win the argument, so she stopped fighting and agreed to coexist peacefully. Aiden wanted to convince her that her basic instincts were the same as humans, meaning she was no different from any other creature on Earth. In reality, she didn't know the truth about the universe either. She was just following some kind of will. Their world did have an ugly side, but overall, it was a decent place. He thought that if he showed her around, he might be able to change her mind. Aiden decided to try and get along with her. She brushed his hand away, stating that they could only get along if he actually trained. He had almost dragged her down with him, while fighting a pseudo-lord rank creature. He hadn't realized that someone as powerful as Nero. Seraphina was preparing to summon something even more powerful to show Aiden and test his strength further. Aiden, of course, refused. He had been fighting for a long time and hadn't fully recovered his stamina yet. He really needed some proper rest. He couldn't even manage to train in his meditation space. Returning to reality, he began thinking about what was just said. He now effectively had a level 9 disaster inside his body, and he couldn't tell anyone about it. Otherwise, she would explode immediately, with unimaginable consequences. But if he could change her mindset, he might be able to resolve the level 9 disaster. It was too early for that, so they decided to just get to know each other first. Reporters and cameramen were waiting at the hospital entrance, as the great hero who saved Lanyang City was about to be discharged. They all wanted to snag an exclusive interview to see what the hero looked like. Unexpectedly, Aiden came out wearing a mask, as he didn't want to be that high profile yet. The reporters crowded around him, and it seemed he wouldn't be able to leave without saying a few words. In truth, he hadn't done much, only doing his best to protect the people around him. Meanwhile, the main force that cleared the threat was the official Academy Association. Everyone contributed their strength, and everyone is a hero. They shouldn't just interview me alone. The students all felt Aiden was right. Even the superhuman squads who had lost teammates were moved to tears. Aiden headed to the park. He wanted to stay out of the public eye for a while to avoid being overhyped. Otherwise, he might be captured for dissection and experiments. His sister was selling ice cream, unaware that he had been injured and hospitalized. Aiden had come hoping to get his sister to take a break and relax. She was as frugal as ever, wanting to save every penny. Understanding her, Aiden didn't push her. He simply stayed by her side. All of this was noticed by Valerie, who was watching from the shadows. She admired the man even more. She called to invite him, but Aiden refused to join the official organization. It hadn't been easy for his sister to support his education. He wanted to finish school first. Only then would he consider other things. Valerie understood, but she didn't want to let such a talent slip away. She told him about Dragon Fang, a special official department. Its members are freelancers. They aren't required to report for duty. They can freely join any legal superhuman organization. And they hold officer-level authority. There is also an annual stipend, and he only needs to assist the authorities from time to time. Aiden won't have to worry about his tuition anymore. They won't restrict his freedom, requiring him to help at least twice a year. Aiden believes this is the calling of every superhuman, so he officially joined the Dragon Fang Squad. After he hung up, his sister came over, wondering who he had been talking to. He didn't hide the fact that he'd joined the authorities from her. Now she wouldn't have to work such long hours, and they could even move into a better place. The two of them celebrated with a seafood feast and some new clothes. Once Aiden settled into the rented house, his sister mentioned the little hero who risked his life for them, noting that their current life was all thanks to superhumans. She wanted to find a way to express her gratitude. Out of her sight, Aiden silently whispered, "You're welcome." The warmth he received from those around him made everything he did worth it. He then began a rigorous training regimen, focusing on core strength, endurance, fist techniques, and both theoretical and practical knowledge. Seraphina then created a phantom of Nero. This image can simulate 90% of the original, providing Aiden with a way to practice real combat. Aiden is already at Moonglow rank. His combat instincts are sharp, but his physical speed still can't keep up with his reaction time. Once he reaches Corona grade, he'll be able to deploy the absolute domain of the Mystic Fist. White Dust rank talent allows humans to surpass their physical limits. In Aiden's case, it gives him punching power far beyond that of an ordinary person. Blue Spirit rank, in addition to an extraordinary physique, also grants powerful explosive spirit techniques. For Aiden, this manifests as the Mystic Fist Burst. Purple Soul rank further grants superhumans the ultimate soul intent. Aiden's is the Starscar Fist Screen. Red Sovereign rank talent builds on the foundations of the previous 3 ranks and grants the Red Sovereign Absolute Domain. Within the Absolute Domain, superhuman abilities are multiplied, while opponents are suppressed and forced to follow his combat laws. It's like a game where he can set the rules himself. Aiden wanted to try out the Red Sovereign rank for a bit. Seraphina, of course, wouldn't allow it. He isn't even proficient with his Purple Soul skills yet, so he's in no position to be asking for Red Sovereign techniques. After all, the ultimate soul intent requires a sufficient number of fist scars to be able to perform it. 49 fist marks are the minimum requirement to trigger it. The faster Aiden can punch and the more precisely he uses the medium, interspersing spirit fist bursts to stack the count, the sooner he can use the ultimate soul intent. A month later, he traveled alone to South Capital to take the special recruitment exam for the Superhuman Academy. Meanwhile, a massive night mist suddenly descended upon the Chishan Industrial Park in South Capital. 2 security guards were performing a security check. It was September, yet they felt a bit cold. Usually, they would have arrived by now, but they still hadn't reached the workshop. They were in the wrong place. Just as one was about to complain that his partner had taken the wrong turn, he looked back and saw his companion caught in the mouth of a giant spider. He ran forward in a panic and rushed into the control room. The first thing he did was call the police. He saw a woman standing at the door, warning her that it was dangerous outside. He urged her to run. But when she turned around, she revealed her true form as a monster. Her hair pierced through his throat and abdomen, sending him crashing to the floor. The industrial park was filled with the sounds of monsters. While one man hid below, the monster is slowly approaching. He covers his mouth, not daring to make a sound. Meanwhile, on the train, Aiden is on the phone with his sister. The attendant comes out to serve water. A woman takes the opportunity to ask about the time. It turns out the person next to her is also heading to South Capital. Nora is the student from Lanyang City who got the highest score to enter the Superhuman Academy. Her mother is accompanying her to register. The people around are very impressed, as that's not a place just anyone can get into. Some children even run over to ask for her autograph. Aiden is quite envious, since she's the top student. He is only preparing for special recruitment. The train suddenly brakes, but Aiden quickly reaches out to prevent the child in a nearby mother's arms from hitting their head. Nora notices how fast his reflexes are. Not only has the train stopped, but everyone has lost their signal. Aiden holds his phone up high and manages to find a tiny bit of signal. A child notices something outside. The train crew begins investigating the situation. The passengers around them start complaining, unsure of what to do. Aiden steps forward to see what's happening, but the attendant stops him, fearing he might cause trouble. Nora follows along as well. They explain they were superhumans. Only then were they taken to the front carriage. The staff were checking the passenger information. It turned out there wasn't a single superhuman on the train. Hearing that there were actually superhumans present, they finally saw a glimmer of hope. However, one was just an intern, and the other was a student who had just arrived to report for duty. Benny was certain that the two of them couldn't handle it. Plus, the situation ahead was still unknown. But they had no choice but to go. The longer they stayed stranded, the greater the danger. Nora wanted to go along as well. After some discussion, Aiden took Nora and Benny to scout the situation. Before leaving, he didn't forget to warn the attendant. The 3 of them walked along the tracks. Aiden asked Benny for more information about the train. If the tracks were fine, the train wouldn't have stopped. Benny didn't think much of it. Based on his experience, it was probably just some wild animals blocking the way. Tessa, the attendant, closed the doors. She saw a woman outside and was about to open the door to let her in. Suddenly, she remembered Aiden's warning, that no one else was allowed inside except for them. She decided to follow his instructions. She decided to wait until they returned. Just then, a greasy man happened to pass by. Seeing the situation, he insisted on opening the door, hoping to play the hero and save the beauty. Tessa was obviously unwilling, which he took as her being cold. The 2 of them reached a stalemate. Losing his temper, the man used brute force. He pushed Tessa to the ground and went to open the door. The moment he opened it, he was terrified. There was no beauty in sight, and he collapsed from fear before he could even run. Tessa scrambled up and ran, but she didn't forget to turn back and close the door. However, the calamity beast tightly grabbed her leg and dragged her out. She used the last of her strength to slam the door shut. Another crew member, urged by the passengers, went forward to check the situation. She found that door number 2 wasn't locked, and Tessa had disappeared. The calamity beast had already slipped away. She simply assumed Tessa had been careless with her work. Meanwhile, Aiden and his 2 companions found some sliding soil on the tracks. As usual, Benny wasn't worried. Aiden, however, noticed that both sides were secured. It hadn't rained, and the area had been cleaned thoroughly. It's impossible for a landslide to happen for no reason. As he spoke, Aiden climbed up to investigate. Benny thought he was being neurotic. He pulled Nora along to clear the fallen rocks. Being just a student, Nora had no choice but to follow orders. Once Aiden climbed up, he found tracks from a massive creature. Just as he suspected, it was a calamity beast. He knelt down to examine them, analyzing what had just happened. Since they were at a high point, his phone still had a signal. He quickly called Valerie. She pinpointed his location. Fortunately, there was nothing wrong with the train. Once the debris was cleared, the train should be able to run normally. They were currently on the outer edge of the mist. The priority now was to get out of there quickly. The mist was quite dense. The dangers inside were unpredictable. It wasn't something he could survive. He just needed to ensure the safety of the people on the train. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Aiden quickly slid back down. Benny and Nora had already finished cleaning up. Benny complained that he was sly for leaving all the hard work to them. Aiden ignored him. Instead, he notified the official center and ordered them to evacuate immediately. The two learned there was a giant calamity beast above, and the falling debris was caused by its movements. With so many people still in the vehicles, the three of them rushed back. Benny fell behind and suddenly tripped, slamming face first into the ground and nearly knocking out his front teeth. When he looked down, he saw a one-eyed corpse. Having never seen such a thing, he collapsed in terror. Aiden and Nora noticed the commotion and looked back, just as an attack arrived. Aiden quickly pulled Nora away to dodge the calamity beast's strike. A mist demon appeared before the three of them. Terrified, Benny clung to the corpse and refused to let go. Aiden stepped in front of him, telling them to find a safe place to hide. Benny nodded frantically, a complete 180 from how he had just been arguing with Aiden. Nora gathered her power to help, but the mist demon lashed out with its hair. Aiden dodged quickly, but Nora lacked his strength and took the hit directly. Only then did Aiden realize she was behind him. Nora didn't hide and was thrown to the ground. Aiden told her to hide quickly, as he could handle this on his own, and she was just a burden. But Nora didn't believe him. After all, wasn't he just a trainee superhuman? She didn't think he could be that much stronger than her. Aiden's body was coiled in the mist demon's hair as it pulled him closer. This speed was actually perfect for Aiden to launch his attack. With a sharp whoosh, he unleashed his spring-loaded punch. The mist demon was sent flying backward, the ground beneath it cracking from the sheer force of the blow. The flash of light stung Nora's eyes, but she had witnessed everything. Aiden's punching power was simply overwhelming, far beyond the capabilities of a Starlight Great. The mist demon clutched its stomach, completely blindsided by the power of that punch. However, calamity beasts are capable of evolution, and it began to transform, becoming much stronger. With a sinister grin, the mist demon struck out, its hair splitting into hook-like strands that stabbed at Aiden from all directions. Aiden's gaze turned fierce as he leaped up and unleashed a flurry of lightning-fast punches, knocking every single strand of the beast's hair back. Nora was stunned. Aiden's punches were so fast it was impossible to tell how many he'd thrown. He wove through the calamity beast's hair and charged straight at it. The beast hadn't expected this. Aiden landed a powerful, charged punch right in the mist demon's belly. To his surprise, there was a naked woman inside the mist demon's stomach. She only became visible once the belly was ripped open. Looking closer, he realized he recognized her. It was the flight attendant, Tessa. He grabbed her hand and pulled her out. Her eyes were tightly shut, as if she had drowned. Her uniform was torn to shreds. The mist demon took the opportunity to flee. Aiden didn't give chase, as saving her was the priority. Tessa was still breathing. She could still be saved. Nora covered her mouth, feeling completely disgusted. Tessa was covered in the calamity beast slime. Aiden didn't care about that. He immediately started mouth-to-mouth resuscitation and began frantically performing chest compressions. With the calamity beast gone, the mist also dissipated. The people on the train finally noticed the group outside, unaware of what had happened until they heard someone had died. That was when Benny came running out in a panic. He had been hiding and didn't know the monster had been driven away. Tessa spat out the liquid and woke up. The conductor quickly got off the train to help as Aiden carried her inside. Even then, she was still insisting that she hadn't let the monster in. Once everyone was on board, Benny quickly closed the door, and the train sped away from a corner of the mist. Afterward, the mist rose all around Xiaopei village. Silas stood in the middle of the mist, talking to Valerie on the phone. A month ago, the authorities detected an invisible calamity star that landed in the forests of South Capital's western suburbs. The astronomy team found no signs of life on the star. According to field reports, no other anomalies appeared near the impact crater, aside from a large amount of purple steam. However, the Shishan Industrial Park was severely hit by what was likely a disaster they had never encountered before. The higher-ups named it the mist. This mist was unpredictable, appearing most frequently in the mountains and forests. Within the shrouded areas, incredible calamity beasts appear there. There might even be monarch-grade calamity beasts. Once the mist disappears, the calamity beasts roaming within it also vanish. One of these calamity beasts was the target Silas was tasked to track. It had just passed the hill by the bullet train tracks. Silas found traces of its movement there. The calamity beast had eaten all the livestock in the village. Fortunately, the people had been evacuated in advance. But not a single person survived at the Shishan Industrial Park. The fact that these creatures vanish makes their investigation exceptionally difficult. While Silas was still inquiring about the incident, he saw a picture on his phone of a giant centipede with mask-like patterns. It had gone missing from a research building over 6 months ago. According to the tracker, it was hiding in a cave near Shishan. Silas couldn't accept that such a massive monster was actually called an insect. The researchers were helpless. Moreover, it was very close to the Shishan Industrial Park. It was the only creature to emerge from the mist, making it both a witness and a survivor. If they could capture it alive, They could find out exactly what lies within the mist. Silas promised he would complete the mission. However, it changes while inside the mist, and there's no telling what form it takes. Suddenly, Silas froze. A giant centipede appeared before him. It swallowed a pig whole. It had become way too big. At South Capitol Station, Aiden and the conductor took Tessa to the hospital. Two men were praising Aiden for being impressive. But Aiden had only driven the monster away. The one who truly protected everyone was Tessa. If she hadn't closed the door in time and the monster had entered the carriage, the consequences would have been unthinkable. Tessa wasn't a superhuman, yet she was so brave, far more impressive than most superhumans. She would surely be rewarded by the train conductor. When Aiden left the hospital, he felt like he had some strange connection with hospitals, always ending up in one no matter where he was. Just then, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. After a notification, he realized it was Celeste calling. Celeste had heard from Lily that Aiden was coming, so she called to meet up with him. Aiden wasn't going to make Celeste travel all that way, so he decided to go to her. The two agreed to meet at Nandu Academy. Aiden took a taxi to the school, reminiscing about their time together on the way. They had really been close before. More than a year after Aiden. Celeste didn't give any response. It seemed like a polite rejection. This meeting was likely just a courtesy based on their past feelings. Celeste was currently with her classmates. She admitted that she had promised to date Aiden once he woke up. Her female classmate didn't believe it. Celeste is a beauty with plenty of suitors. She must have only agreed to this because she pitted Aiden's situation. Now that he's awake, she should make things clear. However, Celeste actually likes him. She also believed he came specifically to find her. Because of that, she felt she should keep her promise. She wanted to give it a try, and even if it didn't work out, she would tell him formally before they parted. The female classmate was convinced they weren't a match and said many bad things about him. She was already prejudiced, viewing him as nothing more than a toad. She believed Celeste had simply been blinded by her naivety in high school. But Celeste had her own thoughts. Seeing she couldn't win the argument, the classmate finally gave up. Celeste even spoke up for him, saying he isn't that bad. She felt that if they actually knew him, there wouldn't be these misunderstandings. But the classmate had no interest in understanding. Meanwhile, Aiden arrived at the entrance of the Superhuman Academy. The place was quite impressive. Two female students thought Aiden was handsome, but they still mocked him for being a country bumpkin. Then Celeste appeared. The girls were obsessed with her, as she was a goddess on the school's popularity list and simply stunning. Even Harry's confession had been rejected by her. Celeste happily greeted Aiden. The two girls were stunned, not expecting the goddess to date a guy like him. They could only comfort themselves by thinking they were just friends. Celeste invited Aiden to get some coffee. On the way, Aiden wondered if she only invited him to avoid making things awkward, and how embarrassing it would be if he brought it up. He eventually decided to drop the subject, thinking that being ordinary friends was fine. Meanwhile, Celeste was hoping he would take her hand. After all, they should be boyfriend and girlfriend by now. Even a simple glance from him made her blush, and she felt as if he wanted to kiss her. Little did she know, Aiden hadn't even seen her reply. Many people in the cafe recognized Celeste. Aiden felt that she had changed a lot since they last met. After learning Aiden wanted special admission, she also misunderstood and thought he was living with her. Her face turned bright red, so she had to change the subject. Aiden mentioned encountering a demoness in the mist. Celeste was deeply moved. It turned out that after he woke up, he didn't come looking for her. But Aiden had been working hard in silence. Aiden still remembered the promise they made back then. Suddenly, Vex snatched away Aiden's hunter ID and began mocking him. He claimed that the lowest rank at the Superhuman Academy is now lunar, and showing a trainee rank was just too embarrassing. Then, changing his tune completely, he leaned toward Celeste with a smile. However, he was driven away by both of them. Just as he was about to lose it, Celeste took a call to shut him up. It seemed she had an emergency. Vex left in a huff. Celeste went to handle the urgent matter, leaving Aiden alone for a moment. Her brother was waiting for her at the cafe entrance. Seeing how well-matched the two looked outside the window, Aiden misunderstood their relationship. He figured she already had a boyfriend, and that it was best not to disturb her. Aiden then arrived at the special recruitment testing venue. The exam for special recruits takes place after enrollment is over. It is essentially a backdoor entry, because if someone actually had the strength, they would have passed during the normal admissions process. Marcus was also there to take the exam. He thought Aiden was being very low-key. His family had donated $7 million to secure his admission. This exam was just a formality. Aiden then realized that no one gets into Nandu Academy without paying. The academy didn't lack geniuses, so special admissions weren't actually necessary. They only did this to raise money for scholarships for students from poor backgrounds. Aiden felt like he didn't stand a chance. The special admissions teacher, Darius, and his two assistants, Sterling and Adrian, began calling the roll. But Aiden's name wasn't on the list. After Marcus pointed it out, Darius realized there was another page. Aiden was a government-recommended candidate. The special admission process consisted of 5 parts, for physical excellence tests and a combat trial. The first test was the strength dummy. Passing standards varied depending on the candidate's superhuman talent. Since Aiden used the explosive type of Mystic Fist, he needed to reach 1,500 kilograms to pass. Marcus could tell the officials were trying to push him out since Aiden hadn't donated any money. But Aiden wasn't afraid. This is just like the Hunter Association's testing machine. With one punch, everyone was shocked by Aiden's strength. The machine exploded, recording 2,200 kilograms. Aiden passed the first basic test. Since the machine was broken, everyone else was also considered qualified to move to the next stage. Aiden was shocked. Is this the power of money? The assistants noticed Aiden's outstanding strength. But Darius didn't care. They had plenty of strongmen. They'd rejected countless people with perfect written test scores. They couldn't just recruit everyone. If it weren't for the official recommendation, Aiden wouldn't even have been qualified to participate. The 3 of them planned to set a high difficulty in the next test to get rid of him. The second test was speed. They had to run and dodge freely within the arena. Anyone tackled by a general rank red-striped cheetah within the time limit was disqualified. Darius told the beast tamer to drive Aiden out first. Then, he could go easy on the other students. As the test began, the cheetah charged toward Marcus. The assistant quickly reminded the beast tamer. This man donated 7 million, so he can't be eliminated like this. The beast tamer signaled the cheetah to let him go. Aiden felt the cheetah wasn't very smart. The beast tamer then ordered the cheetah to chase him. The cheetah pounced straight at him. This time, it was completely different. Aiden planned to lead the leopard toward the other candidates. But he found one candidate was still taking selfies. The leopard, however, remained unfazed and only chased Aiden. He decided to let it experience his true speed, and bolted forward with a whoosh. Everyone was stunned. This speed already exceeded that of most lunar-grade superhumans. 10 minutes later, the leopard was exhausted. While Aiden had only just finished warming up, he prepared to turn around and catch the leopard. The roles were now reversed, and Darius's jaw dropped. After 15 minutes, Aiden was having the time of his life, while the beast tamer stood in front of his leopard, begging for mercy. Eventually, Darius announced that all candidates had passed, which was exactly what he expected. Sterling felt Aiden had a good foundation, but Darius and Adrian still disagreed, even if they didn't know why. It was obvious that Darius really disliked Aiden. They had one more social quota, and since Darius had privately taken money from a parent, he had to eliminate Aiden to make room for that other child. The third test was reaction, using a species of withered tree contaminated by Calamity Star radiation, known as the Devil Tree. They had pruned the tree, so it wouldn't be life-threatening, but getting hit would still cause injury, as long as a drop of blood fell on it. The Devil Tree will come to life and frantically attack any living thing nearby. Coach Adrian cut his finger and placed it on the Devil Tree, causing it to light up instantly. Those whose names were called took the test in the yellow zone, while those who passed waited behind him. The first was Xander. Since the Devil Tree wasn't very fast, he dodged it with ease. After 5 minutes, he passed the test. He exclaimed that his money power was incredibly useful. The students passed one after another. It was obvious the test was being made way too easy. Soon it was Aiden's turn. Darius and Coach Adrian exchanged a look, and the coach understood instantly. Last time, Adrian used a single drop of blood from a finger. This time, he cut his entire palm and placed it on the Devil Tree. The Devil Tree's power depends on the amount of blood it absorbs. It suddenly launched a fierce attack. Aiden dodged around the area. His hidden talent is luck. Even bullets can't hit him, let alone this tree. Coach Adrian was stunned. He wondered how it was still missing. Darius thought Adrian must be going easy on him. So Adrian cut his palm again and pressed it against the Devil Tree to let it absorb more blood. The tree grew violently, attacking rapidly. Aiden simply closed his eyes. He decided to take this opportunity to practice his auditory reactions. Then came a flurry of dodges. Now it was everyone else's turn to be stunned. The Devil Tree's attacks were always right next to him, but it never managed to land a hit. Aiden used a secret technique to jump back and forth. 5 minutes later, he was still going. Everyone claimed he wasn't human. No human could have reactions that fast. The Devil Tree was already exhausted, while Aiden was still stretching. Using this Devil Tree to train his reactions was actually fantastic. Because of the excessive blood loss, Coach Adrian had already foamed at the mouth and fainted. The assessment ended, and he passed once again. His reaction speed already exceeded most people in the academy. He completed all 3 tests far beyond the requirements. Coach Sterling tried to argue on his behalf, but Darius remained stubborn. He insisted that a comprehensive assessment was necessary for special recruitment and that no part of it could be overlooked. Obsessively, he moved on to the next test. Assistant Adrian was helped up and taken to the infirmary. His friends accompanied him and began to comfort him, thinking he was trying to kill himself because his girlfriend was cheating with her uncle. But it turned out he was feeding blood to the devil tree until he became anemic. No matter how he explained it, his friends didn't believe him, thinking he was just making excuses. They then placed a green plant on his head, joking that he should wear a green hat. Assistant Adrian became more upset as he spoke and didn't want his friends to mention it anymore. Darius led everyone into a room. This was the final test, and it was quite simple. There was a device in front of them used to measure the rank of one's superhuman talent. According to the records, Aiden was white dust rank, so he should definitely pass this stage. Aiden really didn't understand why this test wasn't placed at the very beginning. After working so hard to pass 3 stages, it would be a waste of effort if he failed this one. Darius stated that these were the rules, and Aiden's comments only served to annoy him. He ordered Aiden to take the test last, while the order for everyone else didn't matter. Assistant Sterling was in charge of recording the results. Marcus was the first to step up, and surprisingly, he was purple soul rank. This was completely unexpected for Aiden. Then several more people went up in a row. Darius leaned in to mock him. He explained that according to high school theory, superhuman talents can actually be replaced. This is done using a substance called life drops, extracted from special calamity beasts, which allows a superhuman to swap their abilities for new ones. This means that the white dust, blue spirit, and purple soul ranks can all be changed later, provided you have enough resources. Aiden realized it was all rigged, which explained why everyone here had a purple soul talent. Darius admitted Aiden was talented, but claimed this was one area he couldn't overcome. Their minimum requirement was a purple soul rank talent. Ultimate Soul Intent grants a superhuman devastating power, several times the physical limit, and can even threaten those of a higher rank. Therefore, no matter how perfect Aiden's foundation was, his Ultimate Soul Intent couldn't possibly match any of the other candidates. While this was a reminder to Aiden, he wasn't intimidated. He reasoned that if a person's foundation is already powerful, their Ultimate Soul Intent would be even more destructive. Aiden walked up to the testing machine. Darius thought he was just setting himself up for humiliation. Assistant Adrian also leaned in to watch. Aiden's hidden superhuman talent was luck. His manifest superhuman talent also revealed itself, and it was actually purple soul rank. Everyone was shocked. Wasn't he only white dust in the records? Marcus reminded Darius that he had just taught Aiden, and while he was white dust last year, that might have changed this year. Marcus felt proud of his friend. As the tester continued to scan, Aiden saw that the red sovereign rank was about to be revealed. Aiden quickly let go. Hiding one's strength is the first rule of survival, and he saw no need to show the red sovereign rank to these ignorant humans. After passing this stage, Aiden walked up to the 3 teachers and thanked Darius for his earlier encouragement. Now we're both purple soul rank, Aiden said. Aiden's score for the first round was the highest. Darius was furious and shouted that there was still a combat round to go. Coach Sterling felt it was a waste, thinking that if Aiden had taken the entrance exam, he would have been admitted with a top score. Everyone headed to the nearby lounge to rest. For the combat test, upperclassmen would volunteer to assist with the assessment. That was when Vex pushed open the door to apply as a volunteer. Vex had entered Nandu Academy as the 3rd highest scorer from Lanyang City and had studied for another year, so it would be completely unfair to the newcomers if he were their opponent. Coach Sterling obviously knew. Coach Adrian insisted that special recruits should be treated strictly. Vex was a sophomore and ranked in the top 10 of the combat list. Darius slapped the table and chose him. The 3 of them didn't want Aiden to pass. The combat arena was huge. Aiden and Marcus took their seats and noticed that a large crowd had gathered. Aiden searched the crowd for Celeste, but then decided against it, as she already had a boyfriend. Darius and the 2 assistants were ready. With so many people present, everything was fair and open, so no one could accuse him of abusing his power. Coach Adrian stepped forward to read the exam list. Aiden was matched against Vex. The students grew excited at the mention of Vex's name, as he was one of the top 10 on the combat list. The 2 students entered the arena. Vex claimed he didn't do it on purpose. They traded threats, neither impressed by the other. The battle officially began. Vex activated his superhuman power, the breath of wild wind. He charged forward rapidly. Aiden clenched his fist. With a whoosh, a heavy strike landed with a loud bang. Vex was knocked back. He could tell that Aiden was different now. Those 4 basic tests had served as the perfect warm-up for Aiden. The 4 basic tests have already warmed Aiden up. He wants to take this opportunity to teach Vex a lesson. Vex is someone he's hated since high school. He was always two-faced and made things difficult for him. Vex claims he doesn't think of Aiden as a threat at all. He even claims the school arranged for him to be here. But Aiden asks the teaching assistant and exposes his lie. Not only did Vex volunteer, but he specifically requested to fight Aiden. Aiden is speechless. If Vex liked Celeste, he should have just pursued her openly. That would actually be impressive. But since he's obsessed with annoying Aiden, he obviously didn't get the girl. Struck by Aiden's words, Vex loses his cool and starts hurling every insult he can think of. Aiden actually finds this refreshing. It's honest, which is far better than Vex's usual two-faced act. Vex feels Aiden is missing the point, since he's the examiner now. Aiden doesn't care. This is the perfect chance to beat Vex up, and he won't even have to pay for the medical bills. Aiden tosses his jacket aside, and Marcus catches it. Vex is amused, completely looking down on him. He's just a waste. Aiden rushed forward, and Vex quickly tried to block him. But Aiden's strength was too much, forcing Vex back. Aiden used a second burst of speed to close the gap again, landing a punch right to Vex's chin. Vex was sent flying. He flipped in midair and unleashed his spirit skill, Gale Whip. Several tornadoes suddenly erupted, smashing into the ground. Vex felt that no matter how strong Aiden's fists were, he couldn't reach him, as his superhuman abilities were second to none. He then used a mid-tier spirit skill, Wind Python. Aiden saw through Vex's skill, crouched down, and placed both hands on the ground, fusing with the earth to unleash the Mystic Fist. As Vex's skill pummeled the ground, he thought victory was already his. But suddenly, a circle appeared with Aiden standing in the center, completely blocking out the Wind Python. While Vex was still wondering what happened, a fist slammed into him, sending him flying. That wasn't a protective barrier, but the Sand Pillar Fist. The other students were shocked. Wasn't Vex one of the top 10? How could he be beaten like this by a freshman who hasn't even enrolled yet? They began to doubt Vex's strength. A few female students recognized Aiden. No wonder he was on a date with Celeste the other day. So he's actually this powerful. Vex landed on the ground. He also possesses a hidden superhuman talent. The angrier he gets, the more powerful the Gale Breath he controls becomes. And Aiden had already pushed him to his peak state. He unleashed the Storm Breath Dragon Fist. This is a soul intent that can only be performed by those with a purple soul rank talent. Even from a distance, the students felt a sense of dread. Coach Sterling couldn't stand to watch anymore. This is just an admissions test, and examiners aren't allowed to use ultimate soul intent. Now Darius had nothing left to say and could only watch in silence. Vex decided to end the fight right then and there. Aiden was stunned. So this is someone else's ultimate soul intent. But then, he started laughing. It looks pretty impressive, but compared to his, it's not even close. Coach Sterling stepped in to stop it, fearing that Aiden's life would be in danger if this continued. Darius looked grim. If he stopped it, wouldn't Aiden be about to rank up? Marcus shouted for everyone to run. Aiden was sucked into Vex's ultimate soul intent. The students were all worried for him. Coach Sterling was still trying to persuade Darius. Darius swallowed hard, still unable to make a decision. Aiden continued to mock Vex for being incompetent. Vex told him to shut up and focus his power on his combat skills. This absolutely infuriated Vex. He wanted Aiden to go back to the hospital and spend the rest of his days paralyzed. The Storm Breath Dragon Fist erupted completely. The students watched in silence. Aiden gathered power within the attack and unleashed the Hurricane Fist. Vex was stunned. He had no power to fight back and was sent flying into the sky by the punch before crashing back down. He smashed into the ground, creating a massive crack. The students held their heads in shock. Even the 3 teachers were speechless. Vex fell to his knees and crawled over to Aiden. He stammered, asking what that was. Aiden's Mystic Fist can absorb the medium and convert it into power. This included Vex's Wind Breath. Essentially, he used Vex's own power to strike him back. Vex simply couldn't accept it. This was just Aiden's spirit skill, yet it was enough to defeat his soul intent. If Aiden had used his soul intent, Vex probably wouldn't have a single bone left. Aiden only held back because they were old classmates, giving him some face. Vex couldn't accept that Aiden actually possessed a soul intent. Marcus also stepped in to mock him. Aiden is now a purple soul rank as well, and he defeated Vex easily without even using his soul intent. Vex couldn't believe how rapidly Aiden had improved. The doctor urged him to get on the stretcher quickly. Marcus put his arm around Aiden as they left. Even Marcus thought Vex was way too weak. Vex was so furious he coughed up blood. The students shouted loudly for Aiden to be admitted. Coach Sterling also reminded them that everyone had now seen Aiden's strength, and not admitting him would definitely cause a backlash. Aiden then approached the main stage to ask if he had been admitted. He also called out Darius for intentionally letting Vex come, jokingly suggesting that Darius raised the admission standards. He said it would be too embarrassing to have someone like Vex, and told him to train Vex properly. Darius was livid, but there was nothing he could do, so he gritted his teeth and welcomed Aiden to the academy. Unable to win the argument, Darius took his anger out on Vex. He claimed Vex had broken the rules. That's why they won't reimburse the medical expenses. Vex spat out another mouthful of blood. The other tests were completed smoothly. Aiden saw Marcus off. A female student claiming to be an upperclassman ran over, wanting to add him on WeChat and show him around campus. Even when he just wanted to ask for directions, she insisted they go together since it was on her way. Celeste appeared behind them and stepped right between the two. With a cold expression, she refused the offer and thanked the girl for her enthusiasm on Aiden's behalf. The girl wouldn't give up and tried to add him on WeChat. Even after learning his phone was broken, she asked for his number. Frustrated, Celeste claimed his SIM card was broken too. The girl finally left. As the two walked together, Celeste guessed that since people were already asking for his contact info, Aiden must have not only passed but scored exceptionally well. She just didn't realize his combat opponent had been Vex. Aiden didn't want her to know how strong he actually was, so he just laughed it off. The two were schoolmates once again. Aiden finally began the campus life he had looked forward to for so long. The campus had everything, from banyan tree avenues and vast training grounds to student streets, classrooms, and a library. Introduction to Basic Combat for Superhumans. Professor Quinton asked questions while lecturing. Nora, who was sitting next to Aiden, was called on, and her answer left him very satisfied. The professor gave a systematic explanation of the white dust rank's characteristics. The Superhuman Academy has 4 admission standards: strength, speed, reaction, and execution. Meeting just one of these is enough for admission. One student asked why his friend, White Dust, wasn't admitted despite meeting all the standards. Professor Quinton used this to transition into the next topic, the Blue Spirit rank. Even though everyone was already familiar with it, he still wanted to explain it systematically. A female student volunteered to demonstrate a Blue Spirit skill. She could control the intensity of a dazzling light to blind her opponents. The light was so piercing that everyone had to close their eyes for a minute or two before their vision returned. This is the essence of a Blue Spirit skill. In actual combat, these skills provide critical explosive power. They can not only deal heavy damage to enemies, but also produce unexpected effects. They require a gifted user to master them. While much more powerful than the White Dust rank, these skills consume a vast amount of stamina. That's why training remains the key. The students started asking about the Purple Soul again. Since the Purple Soul talent is quite complex and hard to explain, Quinton showed them combat footage from the special recruitment exam. Fortunately, the footage was blurred, allowing Aiden to breathe a sigh of relief. He didn't want to be that famous just yet. The students were stunned. Just by watching, they felt as if they were being torn apart by the wind. Nora secretly observed Aiden, feeling that the person in the video looked a lot like him. As Quinton explained the footage frame by frame, Aiden listened intently and finally understood how Vex's burst of power was achieved. The students gasped in amazement at Aiden's strength, making Nora even more suspicious that he was the person in the video. Quinton summarized the lesson and answered the students' questions. He explained that White Dust talents can be strengthened through training. The more solid one's physical fitness, the stronger their spirit skills and soul intent will be. Therefore, true superhumans aren't measured by rank standards. A White Dust talent user who pushes their physical fitness to the limit can even take down a Black Saint talent user. The students were deeply impressed by Aiden's power. Quinton gave a final summary just as class ended. Nora followed Aiden out and, after some hesitation, called out to him. She wanted to know if he was the person in the video. Aiden was curious how she knew. Nora explained her reasoning. Just then, an official alert warned that a small meteor had entered the atmosphere, with its trajectory estimated to hit Shaoling in the South Capital. Both their phones rang simultaneously. When Nora entered the academy, she was designated as a combat support member. Aiden, however, received a call from Valerie. This time, the disaster at Shaoling was a swarm of over 1,000 alien calamity beasts. Although the frontline forces would handle it, the Dragon Fang Squad needed Aiden to be on standby for any emergencies. Because he was injured and unable to fight for a few days, he couldn't leave the South Capital for other missions. Back at the dorm, Dorian and Teddy were complaining about Victor. From them, he learned that the government agencies had begun to mobilize, and reserve students would be involved in the disaster investigation and preparation. Nandu Academy was the leader of these efforts, so being a reserve member was considered a great honor. But Dorian looked down on it, bragging about his older brother, Theo. Theo was a frontline combatant who lived in a luxury apartment with a butler to clean and do his laundry. To Dorian, reserve members were just errand boys for the frontline fighters. The Academy's 3 goddesses also lived there, including the Ice Princess, Nina. Another is the Martial Saintess, Faye, and the last is the Heavenly Thunder Girl, Celeste. Aiden hadn't expected Celeste to be so powerful. His 2 roommates couldn't believe they were high school classmates. These 3 are basically the wives of every guy in the academy. They thought he was just using the opportunity to scam a room facing the girls' dormitory. Speechless, he left and returned to his room. He entered the meditation space again to begin today's training. Seraphina stretched. The mutated Nero was no longer a worthy opponent for him. But because he had so little exposure, she also had very little data. He needed to encounter more calamity beast species so she could simulate them better. Without new data, there was no point in him practicing here. Wandering around was useless. He had to join the reserve squad. Seraphina suggested he could take private jobs as a hunter. But all of that would have to wait until his Dragon Fang duty ended. Aiden's second dominant talent slot had opened. With a life drop, he could obtain a second superhuman ability. These could be obtained from Calamity Beast nests, or bought if one had the money. He obviously had no money and had originally planned to just practice casually. It was only after her reminder that he remembered he'd just arrived and wasn't yet familiar with the academy. Since he had some free time, he decided to look around. He ended up at the free practice field. Since students there paired up, he could finally find a sparring partner. Seraphina was completely speechless. Inside practice field 1, Aiden hung his clothes on a signpost and began training with a black-haired classmate. His opponent attacked relentlessly, but Aiden dodged every move with ease. Compared to his virtual opponent, this was a far cry from the real thing. It was barely enough for a warm-up. Otherwise, he couldn't think of anything else to do with his spare time. Meanwhile, the fighting in Field 3 was intense. A masked woman launched a barrage of attacks, completely dominating her opponent. She landed a kick, followed immediately by a whip kick. The opponent had no way to defend themselves and was left lying on the ground, unable to move, after just a few moves. Faye, who was in disguise, didn't seem satisfied yet. Known as the Fighting Phoenix, she is one of the 3 goddesses of the Superhuman Academy. She wanted to practice, but she didn't want anyone to recognize her. She was simply too powerful for a mere sparring session. No one dared to spar with her. So Faye decided to just randomly pick students passing by. The students she picked quickly ran away, and soon everyone around Court 3 had scattered in fear. She was speechless. She had no choice but to walk toward the other side. She hadn't even broken a sweat today. A man in black was accompanying her. She had hoped to warm up here, but now she couldn't even get a decent workout. This was because her strength had grown so much that training here was a complete waste of her talent. The man suggested she head to Court 1 to find some stronger opponents. Faye prepared to leave, having already lost interest. But as she passed by, her attention was caught by Aiden at Court 1. He seemed quite powerful. Faye changed her mind. His footwork was impressive, and she figured he might actually last a few minutes. She took off her jacket. The man in black, however, believed Aiden would last even longer, having observed him for a while. The two of them made a bet that she wouldn't be able to take down Aiden within 3 minutes. She decided to train hard using his methods. Then, she stepped forward to challenge him. Aiden, of course, didn't turn anyone away. The other students crowded around to watch the excitement. She rushed in with a spinning kick. Aiden watched her closely and dodged the attack. The two exchanged a few compliments. Then, he took the chance to dash toward her. The students were shocked. These two are absolutely insane. Aiden dodged Faye once again. She came to a halt, trembling. 3 minutes had already passed. Both admitted they had underestimated each other. They began their duel once more. This time, it was Aiden's turn to go on the offensive. He used the Wind Fist Rapid Shadow, second stage burst speed. But she managed to dodge it as well. The students couldn't even follow their movements. Yet, the two of them could easily read and dismantle each other's moves. Just then, the man in black answered his phone. Faye had an urgent mission and had to leave. He interrupted their duel. Only then did everyone realize that this powerful woman was Faye. No wonder she was so incredible. Before leaving, Faye didn't forget to ask Aiden for a rematch. She even asked George to help her find out his name. Aiden had finally seen the kind of talent Nandu Academy possessed. He just didn't realize she was one of the 3 goddesses. He even misheard it as pineapple. Quick, look at the news. The red-eyed calamity demon has been eliminated, and the residents of Shaolin can now return home. Special thanks are also given to 13 students from Nandu Academy for their contributions to the operation. Dorian pointed at the TV, feeling proud of his brother. Teddy was incredibly envious. Now the whole school is talking about those 13 students. Teddy started talking about Victor, but one sentence from Victor was enough to infuriate him. Teddy quickly stepped in to break up the fight, reminding everyone to pack their things. The freshman's wilderness training was about to begin, which is similar to university military training. Aiden had already packed his things. He stared intently at Celeste on the TV screen. In the classroom, Quentin explained the plan for the training. After consulting with the officials, the training site was chosen as Shaolin. The students were not happy about this. Quentin told them this was not some autumn field trip. The red demons of Shaolin can lay eggs, and they hatch and grow very quickly. Although the adults had all been eliminated, some demon eggs remained, posing a significant threat to the residents. Quentin wanted the students to take this opportunity to clear them out. The students had differing opinions on the matter, but it didn't change the outcome. Nora performed well in the rear reserve group and was chosen as the class monitor. The rest of the class committee would be selected later. Just as the weekly meeting ended, Aiden noticed a missed call from Celeste. She was waiting for him at a cafe. Teddy and Dorian started teasing him when they heard a girl's voice. Once they realized she wasn't his girlfriend, they figured he was just a simp. Aiden asked them to put his books away for him. But when they heard it was Celeste, they decided to sneak along and join the fun. They wanted to see him act like a simp. Victor thought such behavior was beneath him and decided to go back and study. He hoped he could get new roommates next semester. This really pissed off Dorian. Teddy stopped him, warning that if they didn't hurry, they'd lose track of Aiden. Aiden sat down across from Celeste and asked if she had been hurt. He assumed she had called him over for something important. On the surface, Celeste didn't say much, but inside, she was freaking out. Things were changing. Aiden had never once called her to check in since starting school. And now he was speaking so strangely. Dorian and Teddy were hiding behind them, eavesdropping. They hadn't expected the two of them to actually be classmates. Celeste had already agreed to be a teaching assistant for the freshman's training. She had even taken the initiative to ask him to a movie. This absolutely infuriated the two roommates. Aiden wasn't the one chasing her after all. The goddess was the one asking him to see a movie, and she even made up an excuse. Aiden had recommended a comedy movie to Celeste, but she didn't agree immediately. She felt like he didn't actually want to go with her. Blushing, Celeste asked him again, and only then did Aiden finally agree. As the two of them set off together, Dorian and Teddy were practically spitting blood from jealousy. They couldn't believe the goddess was acting so humble. They simply couldn't accept this. First the phone calls, then the coffee dates, and now she's inviting him to a movie. How did the goddess become the one chasing him? The students walked forward in groups along the ridge. Along the way, many villagers came to give them gifts to show their gratitude. Nora came to tell Aiden that a teacher was looking for him. Aiden quickly walked to the front. At the front of the group were the vice president of Rongyuan and director Su, the head of combat classes. Aiden took the initiative to greet them, only to find that someone from the instructor group was looking for him. He continued walking forward and saw Valerie. Valerie was the instructor responsible for leading the freshmen. This was a chance for her to relax, as commanding battles was far too mentally draining. Besides teaching field combat and wilderness survival, they also had to ensure the students' safety. Given Aiden's strength, he could easily have been an instructor for these freshmen. But she knew Aiden wanted to experience college life, so she didn't plan to expose him. She had called Aiden here to explain the situation regarding the Dragon Fang Squad. Every member of the Dragon Fang Squad is independent and possesses their own level of authority. So many elite superhuman warriors want to join that they can't even find the application form. Aiden has B-rank clearance, giving him command authority over the operational area. Reserve members from both the school and the government must obey his orders. Even frontline combat personnel in the command area must prioritize his arrangements. The operational area refers to the region where missions are currently being carried out. Aiden has two missions this time. One is to assist the government in ensuring the students' safety in the wild, and the other will be explained in detail once they arrive. For now, Aiden's identity as a member of the Dragon Fang Squad must remain a secret. This was just what Aiden needed, as he preferred to keep a low profile and didn't like being the center of attention. The students were setting up camp in the wild rather than staying in farmhouses. While Quentin was giving out rewards, the boys completely tuned him out the moment they saw Celeste and crowded around her. Aiden had already set up his tent and was preparing to sprinkle some insect powder. Instructor Zach wanted to explain the use of the beast-repelling powder. He explained that wild beasts could evolve and mutate if they ate the meat of dead calamity beasts, and that mutated calamity bears 10 meters tall had already appeared. Camping together was safer, since acting alone or in small groups would be far more dangerous. He warned them to remember these details, as they could save their lives in a critical moment. The students asked him to burn more of the powder. Valerie also chatted with the other girls, recounting her most terrifying experience as a student when she encountered a Calamity Emperor-grade beast. Even from over 10 kilometers away, the King-grade Calamity Emperor was as tall as a mountain range, making it look like a mountain was moving. The entire city was devastated, becoming a nest for monsters. It took the sacrifice of several superhuman leaders to win, including a dean from the Superhuman Academy. After a night's sleep, battlefield cleanup began the next day. The class was split into 10 groups. The instructors led them on a morning run in the mountains for an hour of warming up before breakfast. Maya was in charge of Aiden's group, and she was a beautiful instructor. The teachers and assistants led the way. The students didn't think much of it, believing it wouldn't be hard. After all, they were all superhumans, so how could they possibly fail to keep up? But right from the start, Maya suddenly bolted. The students were stunned and scrambled to follow her. Her speed was incredible, as she zoomed forward and the gap gradually widened. The students became scattered, and many of them tripped and fell. In the end, only 4 people managed to keep up. Maya stopped to wait for the rest of the class, giving these 4 a chance to rest. Those 4 were Aiden, Nora, Victor, and Derek. 3 of them were panting heavily, but Aiden hadn't even broken a sweat. The students behind followed along shakily. 5 minutes had already passed. These students were completely exhausted and couldn't run anymore. Once Maya saw they'd caught up, she started leading them forward again. The students were driven completely crazy. They had been running nonstop without any rest at all. Maya led everyone back. Breakfast wasn't ready yet, but quite a few students had already returned. Every class had a few elite students who could easily handle this level of morning exercise. This was only normal. Those who could attend school here were basically all top scholars, or at least among the best in their region. The 4 students started chatting. After breakfast, they had to conduct a detailed search within a 1-kilometer radius of the morning run route. They couldn't miss a single tree hollow. If they found a hiding red-eyed calamity demon, they were to fire a signal flare and report it immediately. The results of this training exercise would also count toward their credits. Liam organized them into small groups. Victor had noticed a spot further down the path during the morning run where the bushes were very dense. Red-eyed calamity demons love that kind of environment. They went there together to search. One student used a spiritual skill to clear the path, which saved them a lot of effort. However, Aiden didn't think this was a good idea. With red-eyed calamity demons still lingering, being so conspicuous not only gave away their position but also scared the beasts away. Still, it didn't really matter since the instructors had already cleared the area, which was why the path was so clear. Their main goal was to find insect eggs. Since the eggs were tiny and looked like snake eggs, instruments weren't very effective, meaning they had to rely on a manual carpet search. But Aiden found a spot that the instructors had missed. A red-eyed calamity demon appeared, coiled around a tree, and then suddenly bolted away. Aiden started to give chase, but then stopped himself. When he returned to the main group, he found they had already collected quite a few eggs. "Where is it?" the others asked excitedly after 2 students reported a red-eyed demon attack. Aiden refused to lead them to it, wanting to report it to the officials instead. Nora agreed as well. Victor couldn't argue and had to go along with it. Aiden quickly fired a signal flare. The officials arrived instantly. Aiden informed them that more students had been attacked. Then he hurried back while the teacher sent a signal to gather the other instructors. Aiden rushed back and stood in front of the red-eyed calamity demons. He grabbed one and flung it away. But more of them attacked from behind. There wasn't just one red-eyed calamity demon here. It seemed to be a hidden demon den that the frontline personnel had missed. Cries for help from his classmates kept echoing from ahead. Aiden quickly ran toward them. But he was suddenly surrounded by the red-eyed calamity demons. It turned out they could mimic human cries for help. He had to resolve this quickly. Nora, Victor, and the others might have been tricked as well. A calamity beast bit through a vine. It was a trap. Aiden fell right through. Below him was a massive nest of red-eyed calamity demons. They had managed to avoid the sweep by hiding in this vine pit. With a loud crack, a bolt of thunder roared across the sky. Rain began to pour down, and a thick mist rolled in. And it wasn't just ordinary mist. Valerie immediately ordered the evacuation of all students. Maya led everyone toward the red dot location. The teachers were waiting outside to support them. Quentin was getting anxious. But there were unknown hazards here. The primary order was to evacuate. Otherwise, it could lead to a disaster. Celeste heard that Aiden was still inside. She volunteered to go back and save him. Aiden also heard her calling out. He responded, warning her to watch out for traps. All students and teachers had to evacuate immediately. This mist was likely the same mist from the Shishan Industrial Park. There were plenty of traps here as well. Aiden told Celeste to go find the other students first. He said he would handle this on his own. He immediately identified who the leader was. The leader tried to hide behind his minions. Aiden bypassed the minions and charged straight for the leader. The leader was struck and collapsed. Behind him, many insect eggs burst open. With a loud hiss, more red-eyed calamity demons emerged. But these couldn't stop him at all. Using the vine branch as a medium, his spirit skill erupted. Vine patterned spirit fist. With a whoosh, the surrounding calamity beasts were entangled, wiping out the minions in one go. The red-eyed calamity beast leader was furious and charged forward with a hiss. Aiden landed a heavy punch, hammering the leader relentlessly. Eventually, the leader collapsed, unable to move. Aiden pulled the vine and headed out, where he saw the mist. He also discovered a large number of eggs. These eggs weren't for reproduction. They contained an alien gas that creates calamity mist when it reacts with rainwater. The entire Shaoling area was littered with these eggs, meaning a thick mist would form as soon as it rained. The red-eyed calamity beasts were just fodder whose only purpose was to lay eggs and wait for the rain to create an even more terrifying calamity mist. Once Shaoling was shrouded in this mist, no one would be able to make it out alive. The students kept running, believing the fenced-off safe zone was just ahead. But after running for a long time, they realized they had entered a forest instead of a safe zone. The students began to realize they might never get out. Dorian had heard about the white mist incident from his brother, and it sounded very similar to their current situation. Once you enter the mist, we'll be isolated in another dimension. Many of the students had heard of this before. They knew that after the mist cleared from the Shishan Industrial Zone, all the living people inside had mysteriously vanished. No one knows what actually happened in there. The students were terrified, as none of them wanted to die. The teachers and instructors waited by the fence for a long time, but not a single student emerged. Since they were so close just a moment ago, there was no way they could have run in the wrong direction. The instructors shouted at the top of their lungs, but there was no response. Someone suggested going in to investigate, and the others agreed. They tied a rope to the volunteer so he wouldn't get lost once he entered. If anything dangerous happened, those remaining outside would simply pull the rope. Toby had only walked 200 meters before the voices from outside faded away completely. Sensing something was wrong, the group quickly pulled the rope. But the rope had already snapped. Everyone broke into a cold sweat. Aiden reunited with the other students in his group. It turned out they had all fallen into a trap. Those cries for help from earlier were actually the calamity beast mimicking one of the female students. None of this was written in the books, nor had it been officially documented. The group tried to contact their teacher, but there was no phone signal at all. Aiden's communicator rang. It was a special official device. Valerie was contacting him directly. She had evacuated more than half the people, but many students and teachers were still trapped inside. She didn't flee, but stayed behind to lead everyone. The communicator only worked locally within the mist, meaning they couldn't communicate with the outside world. Aiden explained how the mist was created. She understood immediately. This was a crucial clue. The Insect Research Institute had a missing giant human-faced centipede, the only living creature to have escaped from the mist. Although it got away, researchers mentioned that these centipedes love eating insect eggs. It likely ate a massive amount of demon eggs and mutated, gaining the ability to traverse the mist. Normally, demon eggs are too poisonous to eat directly. Fortunately, the giant human-faced centipede was still in Shaoling and likely still within the mist. They just needed to find the centipede and follow it to escape. The students responded eagerly upon hearing this. Quentin also approached with a few students. They don't know the situation here yet and are worried they won't be able to get out. Aiden comforts everyone and relays the complete battle plan. The plan is to collect demon eggs to lure out the giant human-faced centipede. This is their only option. Everyone splits up to take action. Quentin and Celeste will search for the other trapped students and lead them back to the camp. Victor and Nora lead the other students to search for demon eggs. Victor takes charge of dealing with the calamity beasts in the mist. Nora supports him, reminding everyone to stay cautious. The group begins to move. Celeste and Quentin head toward unexplored areas. Meanwhile, the other students follow Victor's orders to find the eggs. While checking on the group, Aiden stays in contact with Valerie. Valerie switches the communication to a public channel, asking all squad members to respond and follow Aiden's instructions from the Dragon Fang Squad. Maya is shocked. She remembers Aiden, but she never expected him to be a member of the Dragon Fang Squad. Valerie continues her analysis, noting that the alien analyzer is working. She can now track the movements of the creatures within a 3-kilometer radius of the mist. Before she could finish speaking, mist creatures appeared at the mountain peaks in the upper reaches of Long Valley. Just seconds before, there had been nothing within a 3-kilometer radius. They were so fast that it was impossible to identify them. They didn't travel there, but seemed to appear out of thin air. Just then, a massive calamity beast appeared near Seraphina. She had no time to dodge and threw her darts, but they clattered uselessly against the beast. The beast let out a thunderous roar, and Seraphina quickly jumped away. This confirmed Commander Valerie's suspicion that these mist creatures were appearing out of nowhere, possibly through devil gates within the mist. The creature was a spider-shaped High Lord rank, and Seraphina was completely outmatched. Instead of following orders to flee into the woods, she ran in the opposite direction. Since the camp was just outside the forest, she couldn't risk leading the monster toward her classmates. Valerie watched as Seraphina was swallowed and extinguished, tears streaming down her face, yet she had to remain focused on her duties. Meanwhile, in Long Valley, Aiden began to think. Their knowledge of the mist calamity beasts was very limited. But based on what they had encountered, these calamity demons were born for slaughter. The scariest part was that they were intelligent. They even had the ability to learn. Valerie warned Aiden that calamity demons had suddenly appeared to his west. They were mutated scorpion tail flies. Fortunately, their rank wasn't high. They were only servant rank. However, there were quite a few of them. What Aiden didn't expect was that they also appeared behind him, in the area he had just checked. By the time he turned around, countless scorpion tail flies had appeared out of thin air behind his back. He immediately started swinging his hammer. Why fear mere servant rank creatures? No matter how many came, he could kill them all. The scorpion tail flies attacked in dense swarms. But Aiden's hands never stopped moving. None of the surrounding calamity demons could escape. He unleashed his swift shadow fist, knocking down countless scorpion tail flies. The ones behind were surprised by his power and called in even more of their kind. Aiden glanced over and saw another swarm approaching from a different direction. He slammed his hammer hard into the ground. Power erupted from the earth. The attack directly hit the incoming scorpion tail flies. They were scattered and knocked down. Aiden's hand had already started smoking. even though he hadn't been touched. But it didn't take long before a buzzing sound echoed. Another large swarm of scorpion-tail flies flew toward him. Aiden felt like he'd poked a hornet's nest. It was simply endless. The creatures even seemed to know who he was. These scorpion-tail flies could smell his scent. No matter where he went, they would relentlessly pursue him. Valerie had been studying these monsters. Although they appeared out of thin air, their spawn points were all roughly the same. They appeared to the south of Aiden. It seemed like there was a hive. They all emerged from there and flew toward him. But since there were already dozens of them here, wouldn't that hive have to contain hundreds? However, according to the red dot distribution device, there were only dozens. It was as if there was a factory nearby. Whenever he killed one batch, a new batch would be manufactured. Just now, after Aiden killed a swarm, they were replaced almost instantly. Even with Aiden constantly slaughtering them, their numbers remained high. If he hadn't stepped in, the valley would probably have been filled with scorpion-tail flies within a few hours. It would have become a calamity fly army, eating every blade of grass clean. Their gathering point was just a short distance behind Long Valley. Aiden was responsible for holding the valley and directing the instructors to resolve the crisis. Despite being just a student, he was shouldering an immense responsibility. Valerie felt apologetic, but she truly believed he was exceptional. Aiden was also grateful to her. After all, she and the instructors could have left, but they stayed because of him. Otherwise, none of them would have had any hope of survival. As Aiden spoke, he didn't stop fighting. Another swarm of scorpion-tail flies was wiped out. He advanced toward the nest, with huge groups of scorpion-tail flies falling every single second. Nearby, there was a lightning-shaped crack. This was the nest factory where all the scorpion-tail flies originated. Their buzzing echoed all around. He felt the wind, sensing a strong wind aura in the air. It reminded him of his duel with Vex. Vex is usually quite annoying, but he's actually useful right now. Otherwise, Aiden wouldn't have known how to do this. Aiden stood his ground and charged his fist, absorbing the power of the wind. Then he punched toward the nest. He unleashed the hurricane punch, sweeping away all the scorpion-tail flies on the road, and they fell to the sides like rain. Aiden drew closer to the nest, noting that no new ones were being created. He walked closer to investigate. It looked like a door that might lead directly to another dimension. With a whoosh, another scorpion-tail fly emerged. Aiden chopped it in half with a palm strike. He suddenly realized this wasn't some kind of nest factory, but a portal from another dimensional plane. The flies were using it to travel here. Those strange calamity beasts must have appeared out of thin air in the mist the same way. He didn't know what was on the other side, so he tried to get a closer look, only to be sucked right in. As he emerged, he found himself in a dark space, a wasteland where many stones floated in the air. Calamity beasts and insect eggs were everywhere. Aiden broke into a cold sweat. Spider demons with skull heads crawled around weaving webs, connecting the surrounding rocks. A giant calamity beast crawled slowly before suddenly lunging forward. There was also a giant flying dragon in the sky. It seemed to spot something and flew straight toward it. A swarm of scorpion-tail flies dropped from its body, scattering and flying toward Aiden. Seraphina quickly warned him, not expecting him to end up here, and urged him to leave immediately. But Aiden remained frozen, stunned by the sight and having no idea where he was. Now wasn't the time for explanations, though. He had to get out quickly, or he'd die right here. Seeing the swarm of scorpion-tail flies approaching, he quickly turned and ran. A green light appeared behind him as Seraphina cast a spell to protect him. While Aiden focused on escaping, she worked to destroy the wormhole. Starlight burst flame. With a loud boom, Aiden ran out of the wormhole well. The wormhole then shrank and disappeared. Serena was lying on the ground, looking absolutely gruesome. The female calamity beast was right beside her, with no sign of leaving. Countless limbs from the beast's body pierced through Serena, and the two merged into one. The beast had now taken on Serena's appearance. The students were lost in the mist, not knowing where to go. When they spotted Instructor Serena, everyone was thrilled, thinking they were finally saved. The students crowded around her, telling her what had just happened. But she didn't say a word, even as they questioned her. Suddenly, she opened her maw and lunged, biting the male student at the front. A scream rang out as he collapsed to the ground with a thud. Only then did the other students realize that this wasn't their instructor at all. Everyone ran for their lives. Limbs surged out from behind the calamity beast, wrapping around the students' waists and pulling them back toward it. Jenny was still running forward and hadn't been caught yet. But then she tripped over a branch on the ground, scraping her leg and breaking her ankle. Another female student rushed to help her up. The calamity beast moved behind them again, and both of them were dragged back. Then, the beast wobbled away. The mist gradually vanished. Suddenly, Valerie saw Serena's signal, and it was very close to Aiden. She hoped that Serena was still alive. The assistants were also confused. They had clearly seen the blue dot fade out, which is a sign that life signs have vanished. It couldn't be a problem with the equipment, right? But since she was their teammate, they couldn't give up on her as long as she was still alive. It was all very strange. Since a malfunction was unlikely, they decided to alert Aiden. But in the next second, Aiden's blue signal vanished too. He couldn't be dead as well, right? Shortly after, his signal reappeared. Valerie quickly tried to call him, but she couldn't get through. The system showed that communications were blocked in that area. There might be some interference. And it happens at the worst possible moment. Someone ran in crying, reporting that Serena had just killed several of their classmates. Quentin was right there, nodding in confirmation. This absolutely terrified Valerie. Aiden had just been right next to Serena, and Valerie wanted to warn him that Serena was being controlled. Aiden sat on the ground, gasping for air, his legs shaking uncontrollably. If Seraphina hadn't warned him in time, he wouldn't have made it out. To him, that place was pure hell. Even now that he was out, he was still trembling with fear. Seraphina comforted him. Aiden pulled himself together, admitting he'd been frightened, but not defeated. Because of his recklessness, his communicator was broken. It was useless, emitting nothing but static. Suddenly, he heard footsteps behind him. He realized it was Serena. He was relieved she was still alive. She asked him to help her up. Her eyes were bloodshot and seemed to be bleeding. She quickly covered her eyes and told him to come support her. But Aiden felt something was off again. Her shoes weren't even wet. To get here through the woods, she would have had to cross the river. Given how injured she was, there was no way she could have hopped across the stones. Suddenly, the Calamity Beast pounced. Aiden quickly dodged. The Calamity Beast revealed its true form. Aiden remembered her, the monster he'd encountered outside the train. Back then, she had swallowed the conductor to disguise herself and sneak on board. This time, she had swallowed Serena. This monster is absolutely vicious. Its level of deception is incredible. If he hadn't noticed those strange eyes, he wouldn't have been so cautious just now. The monster spoke using Serena's voice. It had already mastered human language. Aiden wanted to avenge Serena, and the monster wanted revenge for last time. The monster's attack style was similar to the devil trees. Luckily, he had been training nonstop. He had to find an opening in the attack to have a chance to counter. He also needed a suitable medium, otherwise he wouldn't be able to kill it. The Calamity Beast had already absorbed Serena's power, making it even stronger. Aiden dodged desperately. The monster's goal was to eat him and become even more powerful. He grabbed a handful of dirt and flung it. Sand and stones flew everywhere. But the medium wasn't dense enough to unleash a powerful attack. He kept his hand pressed to the ground. The monster charged at him. With Serena's experience, it was very familiar with how humans fight. It predicted Aiden's movement. Fortunately, he stopped in time and avoided being injured. He had only managed to land 13 punches. He was still far from reaching 49 strikes. And his dodging patterns had been figured out. Continuing the melee fight was too dangerous. Since his luck wouldn't save him every time, he needed to find a powerful medium for his mystic fist. Suddenly, he heard a sound and saw something wriggling toward him across the ground. Aiden quickly dodged backward. Just as the demon mother lunged out of the earth, he performed a flip on the spot. As more rocks flew out of the ground, he noticed they were obsidian, which was several times harder than ordinary rock. This reminded him that during his morning exercises, he'd spotted some small obsidian quarries on the side of the valley cliffs. But the mist was so thick now that he couldn't tell where the quarries were. As the cracks in the ground reached his feet again, he leaped into the air. From his vantage point, he spotted a lone withered tree. The demon mother realized he was trying to escape and chased after him. With the ground constantly cracking beneath him, he finally reached the withered tree. He saw rails leading into a mine entrance, where obsidian was stored. Aiden quickly climbed inside. The demon mother quickly caught up to him. But Aiden was a different man now. He had already absorbed the power of the obsidian, and she had no idea. With a loud boom, the ground split apart. Something was emerging from below. The demon mother was caught off guard. A shard of obsidian shot out, piercing straight through her abdomen. She was skewered and lifted into the air, unable to move. She had no clue how Aiden had managed to do this. The demon mother let out a furious roar, followed by a violent cough. Her head slumped forward, and she slowly began to dissipate. Aiden finally breathed a sigh of relief. The demon mother's body hit the ground with a thud. A green light began to glow within her. Something emerged from the light, a life drop. These life drops can grant or change one's superhuman talents. This pale moon demon mother was a high-ranking calamity beast, though she was still in her growth stage. Yet Aiden had already taken her down. Aiden picked up the life drop. He hadn't realized how powerful they were before. But this demon mother's power had been immense. It almost cost him his life. Calamity beasts with growing intelligence are terrifying. If allowed to grow indefinitely, it would have eventually become the pale moon demon mother empress. That's why such a precious life drop existed. Seraphina took the life drop to purify it, as it still carried the aura of the calamity beast, and Aiden couldn't use it yet. Aiden wondered if Seraphina was also using him to grow. But Seraphina wouldn't be interested in that. What she valued was the agreement between them. She supports him to experience the beautiful meaning of human existence. She's already starting to agree, though she's still far from changing her stance. With her support, Aiden will become strong enough to oppose the cosmic entity and everything it sends down to the human world. The two of them are essentially in a gamble. Aiden thought back to the images of the wormhole well. Seraphina told him to forget it, as she loathed that place for being utterly hideous and primitive. Aiden carried Serena's body back to camp, not wanting to leave her there to be desecrated by calamity beasts. Valerie's voice came through the communicator. She was very worried and only felt relieved once she knew Aiden had killed the demon mother. They need to leave the mist as quickly as possible. There are no more calamity beasts in Aiden's direction. They're also just a few red demon eggs short. He just needs to regroup with the team. In a wheat field, the sky is shrouded in thick fog. A group of villagers are walking along the road, their baskets filled with red demon eggs. They had traveled far to steal these eggs to sell for money. But they've been walking for a long time and still haven't made it back to their village. In reality, they hadn't actually gone very far. It's just that once the fog rolled in, they couldn't find their way back. They did manage to collect quite a few red demon eggs, though. One villager felt like they were being followed. Suddenly, a crowd of figures rushed in from behind. This terrified them. It was Quentin leading the students, and only then did everyone breathe a sigh of relief. The farmers happened to have plenty of red demon eggs. With these added, they'll definitely have enough red demon eggs. Meanwhile, Celeste was searching for the last group of separated students. An hour later, she regrouped with them at the foot of the mountain. It just so happened that it would take them a little while to get there anyway. They decided to regroup first before heading back to camp together. The farmers found the main group. Even though they had already checked, they decided to do it one more time. In a corner of the forest, a figure was steadily approaching a cottage. The cottage's doors and windows were tightly shut. As soon as Celeste opened the door, she saw her fully armed classmates. The last group of students had been hiding inside. Now, she would lead them back to camp. They passed through a cave, then through a stream and a bamboo forest. They finally reached the signal point. All the students in this area had been recovered. Now they just had to follow the markers to regroup with Quentin and the others. The students quickly kept pace. Celeste constantly checked to make sure no one fell behind. Suddenly, she stopped, sensing something was wrong. She launched her skill upwards. The students were terrified. She warned everyone to look up. Everyone looked up. Countless calamity spiders were diving down from the sky. Celeste leaped up with a start. She released her superhuman power, blocking all the calamity spiders. Once she was done, the corpses all rained down. The students were in awe, thinking she was incredibly powerful. She must be at least Corona grade. It was hard for them to kill even one together. Yet she took out so many in an instant. They wondered when they would ever reach that level of power. Celeste then led the students to regroup with Quentin and the others. Seeing their teachers, the students felt a sense of relief, as if they finally had someone to rely on. They asked about the things they didn't understand, wondering why so many monsters had reappeared when they thought they'd all been eliminated. It turned out the calamity beasts here descended in various ways. Fortunately, they had found a way out, and the teachers encouraged everyone to stay strong. They reminded them that none of them were ordinary people, but superhumans. The students regained their confidence, knowing that once they cleared this mountainous area, they would see the camp. As they moved forward, the entire path ahead of them was littered with the corpses of calamity beasts. This terrified them. There were just too many calamity beasts here. If they had run into them, they would have been dead. They had no idea who had wiped them all out. Soon, they spotted Maya. She was severely injured, but she still urged everyone to get back quickly. Before she could finish, she was impaled by a calamity beast. The beast knocked her down, still skewering her. She was completely immobilized. This terrified everyone. The students tried to run back, but they were all stuck. The calamity beast had blocked the path behind them, trapping them in place. They were surrounded by massive spider webs. There was no way out. The farmers said this was the creature that had been stalking them. Instead, it waited until now, waiting for them all to gather in one place. Then it cast its web to catch them all. This is the habit of an anteater. When facing a colony of giant ants, no matter how hungry it is, it won't eat them immediately. Instead, it hides and silently follows until the ants return to their nest. Then, the anteater devours the entire nest, including the queen. But before they could reach the camp, the disaster spider attacked. It was because there were more powerful superhumans near the camp, and the monsters were afraid of them, so they intercepted the group early. This meant the monster had weaknesses and could be defeated. Celeste stepped forward, while Quentin and Jonas helped the students. She would be the one to take down this monster. The Skull Widow raised its spikes and lunged forward with a boom. Celeste leaped up and dodged the attack. As expected of the second-ranked student in the second year, anyone else would have been too slow to react. However, Celeste felt something was off. She didn't know what the Skull Widow was up to, but it made a strange sound and suddenly leaped out from the ground. As she landed, she felt the ground shake, and spikes suddenly surged up from beneath her with a boom. The others could no longer see Celeste and grew worried. Fortunately, she leaped out from the chaos shortly after. Quentin called for them to pick up the pace, so she wouldn't have to hold out for as long. Celeste did a split in midair and delivered a powerful kick to the monster's back. A Thunder Eagle strike followed, and she quickly landed back on the ground. The entire area was scorched. She quickly stood up again and slashed at it with her weapon. The Skull Widow opened its mouth, clearly in pain. Celeste threw another punch downward. The monster opened its maw and spewed an unknown liquid. Quentin rushed over to rescue her. He threw out a scroll, which formed a barrier in the air. Celeste ran over and took cover beneath it. The barrier blocked the toxic rain. They had already rescued most of the students. The Skull Widow had also been severely wounded by Celeste. Their chances of escaping were now very high. Quentin felt a bit embarrassed. His ability was shelter, meaning he could only protect others and couldn't fight head-on. Suddenly, the students started screaming for help. Out of nowhere, a swarm of calamity spiders appeared. They surrounded them from all sides, crawling toward them. They began biting the corpses of dead calamity beasts, leaving everyone confused as to why they were eating their own kind. But they gradually grew larger, sprouting giant spikes and using their fallen companions to heal. Celeste had just stepped up to fight. Quentin encouraged everyone to work together. Since they were all superhumans, he felt it was wrong to let Celeste fight alone, believing there was strength in numbers. But everyone acted as if they couldn't hear him, crouching on the ground and clutching their heads. This Skull Widow was Lord rank, possessing a lord's power of intimidation. It plants a seed of fear deep within a person's heart, using their own terror to water it until it takes root and sprouts, allowing the monster to manipulate their thoughts. Unless someone has reached Corona grade, it's impossible to resist. Celeste told Quentin to take the others and leave while she held off the monster alone. This was her choice and her duty. She believed that once these students grew stronger, they would one day protect their own juniors the same way. As Celeste walked toward the monster, the Skull Widow approached her. Many calamity spiders still surrounded them, while Jonas continued to rescue the remaining students. Jonas was also surprised by the scene before him. The Skull Widow had eaten many of its own kind, not only healing its wounds, but significantly increasing its strength. Celeste floated up from the crowd. Meanwhile, Quentin cast a barrier in front of the students to protect everyone. A few other students gathered their courage to help. No matter how scared they were still students of the Superhuman Academy and couldn't just wait here helplessly for death. They had to do something to bring honor to the academy. Jonas's attention was drawn to Celeste as she unleashed a powerful force. This was her ultimate soul intent, thunderous dance, which struck the Skull Widow with violent lightning. A cloud of smoke rose, and the monster didn't move for a long time. Celeste landed back on the ground, drenched in sweat. The attack had consumed far too much of her stamina. Just as she thought the Skull Widow had been destroyed, it appeared before her again. It wove a massive spider web called the Blood Canopy Web. Celeste was trapped inside the web, unable to move her arms or legs. And right outside was the Skull Widow. The Skull Widow kept calling her an ant. Celeste realized this was an illusion. She couldn't see anything other than the monster. Quentin and Jonas had already rescued all the other students. But when they looked back, they found Celeste standing there, motionless. It seemed as if her soul had been suppressed. No matter how much they shouted, she didn't respond. More calamity spiders appeared and surrounded them, weaving webs right beside them. They barely managed to break through, knowing that if they didn't leave now, it would be too late. Under the pressure of his duty, Quentin couldn't go back to help and had to prioritize getting the other students to safety. He believed firmly that Celeste could strengthen her will and survive this ordeal on her own. Celeste was still struggling against the Skull Widow. The monster tried to convince her that she would die saving the students. It claimed the students would abandon her and run, not even knowing she was trapped. It told her that her soul would remain here, suffering for eternity. Though she seemed like a gifted child and the center of attention, Celeste had never felt true sincerity from anyone. Everyone just flattered her on the surface with hypocritical kindness, yet kept their distance, feeling she was too high and mighty and just maintaining a fake, perfect image. She remembered calling Aiden many times, yet he hadn't replied to a single one. Aiden arrived at the scene. Even knowing the opponent was Lord rank and that he would be overwhelmed by fear, he insisted on going in to save her. Compared to losing her, that bit of fear was nothing. Valerie contacted everyone via the communicator, saying a member of the Dragon Fang Squad was coming to help. But the only person who arrived was Aiden. How could a mere student be a member of the Dragon Fang Squad? They didn't have time to think it through and could only focus on escaping. Aiden charged forward, kicking away the calamity spiders surrounding the area and quickly reaching Celeste's side. She still couldn't move. After killing the spiders, Aiden turned his gaze toward the Skull Widow. He was absolutely furious. His furious burst punches landed with a series of heavy crashes. The Skull Widow dodged them quickly. Dodging was impossible. Aiden unleashed another Starscar fist screen. The Skull Widow's limbs were shattered. Aiden closed in on it once more. He delivered the final blow of the Starscar fist, the falling execution. Celeste suddenly jolted awake, and Aiden rushed over to hold her. She was dazed, feeling pain throughout her body. Instructor Zack arrived just in time. Seeing Aiden carrying her, he decided to credit the kill to Celeste as they headed back together. Zack spoke about the mission. When Aiden first joined, Zack hadn't agreed to it, but now he was glad he hadn't refused. It turned out that Zack was the leader of the South Capital Dragon Fang Squad. Their identities would remain a secret. Zack needed to save his strength to deal with the mutant human-faced centipede, so he had left Aiden to handle the Skull Widow alone. The centipede had mutated twice, reaching the Emperor grade. Valerie's and Zack's arrangements had been correct. Instructor Zack then gave Aiden his second mission, to keep the identity of the Dragon Fang Squad members hidden. Back at Nandu Academy, members of the Tianquan organization are present there. The main responsibility of the Dragon Fang Squad is to excise the tumor that is the Tianquan organization. This is why Aiden was asked to recruit more members. Nero, the doctor from Lanyang City, was merely an outer member of the organization. To create a feat for his initiation, he triggered a catastrophic event that harmed countless people, and he took pride in it. Aiden couldn't believe that Nandu Academy also had people like that. While this disaster was natural, if this opportunity is used well, what would have been a tragedy with few casualties could be turned into a massacre in the cradle of superhumans. It is difficult for the Tianquan organization to kill powerful superhumans, but they can be strangled before they even have a chance to grow. This would create a gap in the strength needed to resist the cosmic Tianquan in the future. Every year, Nandu Academy produces a vast number of talents for society. If people like Aiden and his companion were to die in this disaster, the organization would achieve victory. These were all things Aiden hadn't considered. The members of Tianquan are hiding their identities well. Aiden needs to stay suspicious of everyone. He can't tell anyone about his identity either. Instructor Zack also stepped in to downplay Aiden's contribution. Once the three of them returned to the group, Quentin urgently questioned them. Dorian also spoke up, which finally convinced everyone that it wasn't him. The red eggs had all been collected, and they were now waiting for the mutated monster to appear. Suddenly, everything spiraled into chaos as everyone began to run. It was the same guy who had forced the train crew to stop that day. Instructor Zack stood alone atop the mountain peak. A giant centipede leaped out, causing the entire mountain to tremble. It was even more terrifying than the Skull Widow. Aiden felt paralyzed, wondering if it was a monarch-grade calamity beast. He didn't even have the courage to resist. Zack took off his hat, looking as if he were ready to face death. "I swear by the Soul Book, I command you to submit." His eyes emitted a yellow glow, and circular patterns surged toward the monster. The monster was struck and submitted completely. It crawled out from the ground. Aiden was deeply impressed. Zack's mind control had forcibly tamed a monster nearly at the monarch rank. But then Zack suddenly said some strange things. When he turned around, blood streamed from his face, and he collapsed. He had sacrificed his life to save them. Instructor Zack slowly closed his eyes. As they descended the cliff, the giant centipede followed close behind. This was the path to survival the instructor had left for them. Only then did Aiden realize what those words meant. One student knelt on the ground in repentance, and Valerie walked over to comfort them, herself bursting into tears. At the camp, the students loaded their belongings onto the endless body of the giant centipede, which carried them out. With a whoosh, it shot forward. Everyone clung on tight and lay flat, terrified of falling off. At the foot of the mountain, as people were still trying to get word on the situation inside, they spotted the figure of the giant centipede. They quickly prepare for battle. Valerie quickly greets everyone, letting them know the monster has already been subdued. The people outside are thrilled. Valerie reports to the South Capital Guard Chief that 3 instructors died during the mission. Everyone is heartbroken and salutes them in gratitude. One of them was the vice president of Nandu Academy. Nandu Academy held a memorial service for the fallen heroes. These 3 men were the benefactors of the academy. A masked person in the group looks down and sneaks a laugh. Next, they commend the students who performed exceptionally, including those with distinguished merit. The students are secretly discussing the members of the Dragon Fang Squad among them. Teaching assistant Celeste is awarded 2nd-class merit. Lucas is awarded 3rd-class merit. Victor, Aiden, Nora, and others are also recognized. Everyone applauds as the president gives his speech. Celeste returns holding a bouquet of flowers. Celeste had tried calling Aiden many times on his superhuman mobile, but he hadn't replied once. Then, coincidentally, he finally calls her. She excitedly answers the phone. It turns out he is right downstairs. Celeste ran out enthusiastically to welcome him. A gentle breeze blew, scattering petals around her. The two of them sat on the sofa and chatted. Celeste suspected that Aiden was the nameless student who had pulled her out of the abyss. Aiden kept trying to explain, but she didn't care and kissed him right then and there to show her gratitude. Both of them blushed deeply. Meanwhile, at the training ground, Faye was absolutely furious. She had been waiting for 2 weeks, and Aiden still hadn't shown up to keep his promise. It was the first time in her life she'd been stood up. George reminded her that today was the commendation ceremony for the freshmen. He suggested that Aiden might be one of the freshmen, but Faye didn't believe it for a second. The two of them continued to place bets. Faye went off to find someone else to train with. After Aiden left Celeste's house, she blushed with embarrassment, but she also felt that it wouldn't be out of the question for them to date. Aiden, however, still thought she already had a boyfriend. When he arrived at the training ground, he finally remembered his promise to Faye. He quickly put on a mask and went to meet her. Faye and George appeared before him. That was when Faye realized he actually was a freshman. She had lost the bet again. Furious, she stormed off. George tried to explain, but he didn't expect that Aiden didn't even know who Faye was. George gave him his phone number. He was hired as a sparring partner with a very generous offer. The pay was 10,000 yuan for 1 session a week. Aiden was really going to make a fortune. Aiden returned to his dorm. He entered his meditation space to practice with the literary spider. He still couldn't beat it. After all, it was still Moonglow rank. He recalled that the Skull Widow had a bone dragon on it. The bone dragon had a sky ghost beast on it. The skin flakes falling from its body became a nest for the scorpion tail flies. Moreover, the Skull Widow had been severely wounded by Celeste. Otherwise, Aiden never would have won. He didn't want to see anyone else die in front of him. Seraphina sighed, noting that he was constantly improving. But human physical recovery and strength have their limits. To get stronger, he would need auxiliary potions. After humans kill monsters, they perform dissections for research. Life drops are the most powerful tool. They can turn ordinary people into superhumans, granting them superhuman power. Seraphina brought out the life drop she had purified last time. It was purple soul rank. Once purified, it could grant someone a kind of camouflage ability. It was highly functional. But it wasn't suitable for a primary combatant like Aiden. Even if he obtained this superhuman ability, he would still need to retrain and improve, so Aiden decided to focus on his own cultivation. Besides life drops, humans also developed astral fluid, which is extracted from the blood, bone marrow, and brain matter of calamity beasts, making it extremely expensive. Progress is proportional to one's own training, but since the body cannot absorb enough energy, relying on human supplements is far too slow. Astral fluid is much more suitable for him. Seraphina told him to sell the purple soul rank life drop. Just as he was about to look for Marcus called him. Whether buying or selling, it's more convenient to go to the Hunter's Hall, where he could hire a hunter girl to help him. Aiden arrived at the Hunter's Hall. It had been so long since they'd had a big client that they could barely afford the rent. The staff saw Aiden's apprentice badge and were unwilling to help him, so they called for Ivy, who then appeared. Aiden was already qualified to become a Starlight Hunter. Once he upgraded, he could take on higher-level commissions and bounties. He took out the purple soul rank life drop, leaving the staff stunned. Those who were previously unwilling to help immediately rushed over to serve him, but he still chose Ivy. Aiden saw exactly how those people had ignored him. Ivy said she would contact an appraiser immediately to perform a comprehensive analysis. Then, they would determine a starting price and list it for public auction in the hall. Aiden also needed some astral fluid, but he didn't understand the different purity levels. Ivy took him to the VIP reception room to explain. She explained that astral fluid comes in different grades, with top prices around 900,000. High-purity fluid is expensive, and its purity is closely linked to metabolism. Since it is refined from calamity beasts, it contains certain toxins. It cannot be used in excess, or it will cause irreversible damage to the body. Aiden groaned, noting that with something so expensive, it would be impossible to use too much anyway. The higher the purity, the lower the toxicity, and the faster the body can metabolize it. For astral fluid with 90% purity, a normal person would need 1.5 years to detox before using it again. However, high-intensity training and combat speed up metabolism, shortening that interval. Low-purity fluid, on the other hand, costs 400,000. The detox time for the highest purity is about 3 to 4 years. The cheaper versions take over 10 years to completely eliminate the toxins. And there is still a certain amount of risk. Aiden thought it over carefully and decided to buy the astral fluid with the highest purity. Ivy gave him her business card, and from now on, she would be his dedicated agent. The appraisal of the life drop was finished. It was a top-tier specimen with a starting bid of 200,000. Aiden was shocked. He was about to make a fortune again. His trades would also increase his hunter points. If these 2 deals went through, his points would level up again, and after an evaluation, he could become a Corona-grade hunter. He asked her to keep an eye out for high-paying commissions. Aiden returned to Nandu Academy and took a breather, feeling like he could finally live a normal college life. He would go to class in the morning, practice fighting in the evening, and study various subjects at night. During Professor Vance's class, he explained that most calamity fragments possess radiation that changes the structure of minerals. Black rock, for instance, becomes crystalline after radiation, with a hardness that even exceeds refined steel. Aiden was called up again for a demonstration. While the professor was explaining just how hard the crystal was, he told Aiden to use all his strength to crush it. All the students' attention was focused on Aiden. Then, he crushed the alien crystal. The professor couldn't believe a freshman possessed such strength, so he quickly steered the conversation back. He urged the students to collect more of these, as they were valuable minerals. After returning to his seat, Aiden noticed a new power in his arm. Even though he only had a small piece of the alien crystal, his mystic fist had already triggered an absorption reaction. After class, Aiden went to consult Professor Hugo and told him about his superhuman talent. Hugo explained that these irradiated rocks absorb similar elements, condensing them into crystals with a concentration 100 or even 1,000 times higher than the original. A single piece could contain as much material as an entire small mine. This proved that the power of Aiden's mystic fist was linked to the concentration of the material it absorbed. Professor Vance took Aiden to conduct some experiments. There were higher-grade rock crystals there. The lab was filled with various experimental specimens. As soon as he stepped inside, both of Aiden's arms were filled with power. Vance brought out some insulating gloves. He also discovered that Aiden's superhuman talent was Red Sovereign rank. From the moment he entered, his arms were involuntarily affected by the crystals. Aiden's spiritual technique involves absorbing medium substances to unleash an explosive punch that carries the properties of that substance. Since he needed a specific substance, he would usually touch it with his hands. In reality, he didn't have to touch it, as his arms naturally react to all surrounding medium substances. The more he absorbs of a single, pure medium substance, the more powerful the result. If he wants to increase the strength of his spiritual technique, he first needs to learn how to reject the absorption of a medium. The two of them conducted an experiment. It turned out he couldn't just absorb the medium from a single crystal, as everything around it would be affected. This was completely uncontrollable, meaning he hadn't mastered the technique at all. Attacks launched under these circumstances lacked any real power. Absorbing the medium through touch was also unstable. If he was too far from the medium, and if the enemy knows his ability. Recalling his own experiences, Aiden remembered several times when he fell into trouble simply because he had no medium to use. Professor Vance had him try touching the medium with his hand again. Next, he went to the testing ground to throw a punch. The area was filled with old dummies, discarded from previous experiments. The professor told him to use all his strength and punch the facility. With a massive boom, his ice roar fist froze the entire facility. Even Professor Vance was shocked by how overpowered this spirit skill was. This was the first time Aiden had unleashed a medium spirit punch with such devastating power. This experiment proved that Aiden's power depends on the concentration of the medium. While he only had a small anomaly crystal in class, he was now touching a brilliant grade anomaly crystal. Aiden found it incredible that a tiny piece could be equivalent to an entire ice mine. Aiden wanted to buy some so he could level up his ability quickly. However, only low-grade crystals are available for sale, and even those are scarce, while high-grade ones almost never appear on the market. Most owners, even the one at the school, was donated by a social organization. If Aiden kept some on him, he could crush and absorb them during a critical fight to consistently unleash a spirit punch several times more powerful. With this kind of external aid, his combat power would be much more secure. The only drawback was that it was quite expensive. Radiant-grade frost crystals are practically priceless. Those shimmering crystals are worth several times more than diamonds. Aiden dismissed the idea. Professor Vance taught him to start by practicing medium perception, using his skin to feel everything floating in the air. He couldn't just rely on what he could see with his eyes. Skin perceives temperature, the nose detects dust, ears hear the sound of water, and hands feel the movement of the wind. As long as he diligently practiced his 5 senses, Professor Vance provided several grades of defective crystals that looked identical to help him train his perception. This would allow him to adapt to different environments in the future, identify powerful mediums more quickly and accurately. This is just the first stage. The second stage involves learning to absorb energy not through touch, but from dozens, hundreds, or even several kilometers away to make it his own. The professor told him not to underestimate himself. As a Red Sovereign rank, the professor explained that once cultivation is complete, one could even absorb a bolt of lightning from the sky. Aiden hates feeling small, ignorant, and powerless. He wants to become stronger. Back at the dorm, he sat on the rooftop with a few stones laid out before him. They all looked identical, But as he concentrated his mind to perceive them, he was finally able to tell them apart. Aiden continued sensing the surrounding mediums. His training was already paying off, so he no longer had to worry about finding effective medium materials. When Ivy called him from downstairs, he jumped straight off the roof, right in front of his roommate, who was watching from the window. His roommates looked on with envy. Aiden really is lucky. There was a high-purity batch of astral fluid. Since the owner needed money urgently and wanted to avoid the auction process, it was sold for a flat price of $850,000, and Ivy snatched it up immediately. She marveled that he was still just a student. Aiden continued to ask her to keep an eye out for things he needed. With this astral fluid, Aiden's strength could take a qualitative leap and reach Corona grade. He found a secluded spot to consume it. His head throbbed as the power inside his body churned relentlessly. With a loud boom, the surrounding leaves were blown away, and the entire forest felt the impact. He had succeeded. As he slowly stood up, Aiden had officially reached Corona grade. He put on his backpack and prepared to leave. That was when George called him, asking him to be a sparring partner, which was perfect since Aiden wanted some actual combat training. However, spiritual skills were forbidden for this session, which could be somewhat risky. But as soon as he heard the pay was doubled, he readily agreed. At the training ground, Ivy was stretching her muscles. Upon learning that spiritual skills could be used, Ivy was convinced Aiden was doomed to lose. Her strength had made a huge breakthrough, and her spiritual skill was superior to most others. It was very unfair to him. Aiden arrived at the scene. Wearing his usual mask, the two began their final showdown. Right from the start, Ivy unleashed her ultimate move, erupting in intense flames that surged forward and reached Aiden instantly. The explosive power was terrifying. In the next second, she appeared right in front of Aiden and launched a kick. Aiden quickly blocked it with both hands. With a loud boom, she landed, her hair flowing loosely. The students gathered around and recognized Ivy, feeling sorry for Aiden. Being a sparring partner was just too miserable. Aiden also recognized her ability. She was the most ruthless opponent he had ever seen. If it were before, he wouldn't have lasted 2 moves against her. But he had already reached Corona grade. And inside his body, a surge of wild, unrestrained energy had nowhere to vent. With a loud boom, Aiden erupted and charged right at her. He knocked her to the ground instantly using the twirling wind fist. Ivy's eyes flared with fire as she launched a counterattack at Aiden. Flames erupted across his chest. Despite being the aggressor, he was the one taking damage. If this continued, his arm would be toast. Ivy unleashed her Phoenix Dance incineration. Aiden finally felt Ivy's true strength, realizing he had seriously underestimated her. He pressed both hands to the ground, using a dim grade technique. It wasn't much, but it was enough to shield him from the burns. She charged at him again, engulfed in raging flames. He struggled to block her as she circled him, triggering explosions that filled the air with thick smoke. He dodged desperately, but his clothes were already scorched and torn. He simply stripped them off. Ivy had completely transformed, and her power was now terrifying. It was clearly just a spirit skill, yet it was more terrifying than some people's soul intent. This thin earth and stone medium couldn't block her scorching flames, even after he absorbed it. At this rate, defeat was inevitable. The entire arena was filled with scorching flames. But Aiden kept holding on. Now it was Ivy's turn to be impressed. This was just a spar, and she couldn't actually beat him into the hospital just to win. Aiden thought she had exhausted a lot of her energy, but she believed he was already at his limit. There were probably fewer than 5 people who could fight her like this. He wanted to try one more time, sensing everything around him. He felt the stones beneath his feet, the wind from the south, the scent of the trees, and the humid air. Then, he felt the lake, a rich source of water elements. Using the sensing method Professor Vance taught him, he rejected the elements he didn't need, focusing only on the water. Ivy didn't want to waste any more time and decided to end the fight. The flames scorched him. Aiden called upon the power of water. The sound of rushing water filled the air. Waterfall fist, falling dragon. He blocked her attack, and the power of water continued to surge toward her. Ivy was swept into a vast body of water. The barriers couldn't hold, and the entire playground was flooded. The students quickly turned and ran for cover. Everyone was amazed by the power of this ability. All they saw was a brilliant blue light. As they were using spirit techniques, rain began to pour thunderously from the sky. This was the true form of a red sovereign superhuman talent. It was simply too powerful. Ivy lay on the ground, having passed out. Aiden rushed over to her and found that she had nearly drowned. He had no choice but to perform CPR. His cheeks flushed red as he pulled down his mask. Just as he was about to lean in for the kiss, Ivy woke up and blocked his mouth with her hand. George felt it was a missed opportunity. Ivy admitted defeat, and the two shook hands. Next time, they would be competing in soul intent. George naturally stopped them. Both of them were very strong. Soul Intent possesses immense destructive power. Such power should be used against the calamity beasts attacking human cities. The two said their goodbyes. The classmates were all staring at her, so George quickly covered her with some clothes. Then the two drove away. George could tell Aiden was different. Despite being so powerful, he remained mysterious and didn't want anyone to know his true strength. They speculated that Aiden was the mysterious special merit student. Out of respect for him, they decided to find a more private place for their next spar. It was a pity they hadn't seen what he actually looked like. She was annoyed that George was stirring up trouble. Aiden returned to the Hunter's Hall once again. Ivy led him to a VIP room and brought out the item he had been looking to buy. It was a brilliant grade frost heterocrystal. With this, he wouldn't be completely powerless even against enemies several ranks above him. It cost millions, leaving Aiden stunned by the exorbitant price. He's still grateful she kept an eye out for him. Now that he's become a Corona-grade hunter, he'll receive many privileges. Any intelligence gathered will also be synced to him. He'll also be eligible to attend the Hunter Convention and request assistance from the Hunter Association.